A young man walking through the biting snow found himself shivering in the freezing weather, when suddenly he stopped hearing a faint sound, and a small cat approached him through the snow, pawing at his leg desperate for his attention. As this cat looked up pleading with its eyes, and he was startled by its strange sudden urgency, for this cat turned meowing insistently, then began to lead him down a snowy side street, making him realize it wanted him to follow, and unable to ignore it, he followed the cat. It led him into a dark narrow alleyway, where what he found made him gasp in shock, as other kittens were huddled together nearly frozen, covered in snow barely even moving, and he reached out desperate to help them, bursting into his home moments later yelling for help as he carefully picked up a tiny cold kitten, and he and his mother tried to warm them up. But one kitten's fur was frozen completely stiff, making them fear one of them was already gone. So he gently tried to warm its tiny body, using warm water, but there was no response, filling him with regret, a feeling that he was too late, but he refused to give up on the little one. He remembered that moment, almost giving up on the kitten, until a tiny squeak brought it miraculously back to life, and he recalled the frustrating, messy memories that followed, the overwhelming chaos of raising them all, the endless early morning wake-up calls, and the constant destruction of his furniture. Now in the present, the injured cat brought him a toy. And this young man told his cat Pipeju that he had to go, pouring out food while promising this was the last time, as he held a VR helmet vowing to return soon, and with a final warning he said his goodbyes, putting on the helmet as the world around him dissolved. His eyes narrowed with a grim determination, as the system logged him into the world of Metaria. Inside the game, a golden knight stood facing his enemy, while his party called upon the gods for power, and this knight led the third row forward into the fray, unleashing a barrage of holy light that rained from the sky. All of it aimed at their target, a colossal purple monster, but this beast countered with a devastating swing of its own, their attacks barely even scratching its massive body, as the monster formed a blade from pure dark energy, for after days of fighting, the final battle was finally here, and this knight declared his team would defeat the Colossus Loke, bracing his shield, its lion emblem glowing bright. Just as the Colossus unleashed a devastating purple beam, the hooded captain shouted orders to his raid team, as dark energy spikes tore through their formation, and he commanded the second row to rally behind him, activating his ultimate defensive skill, while the monster's furious assault continued unabated. So he laid out the final plan: dodge then counter, his shield of light meeting the dark energy head-on, as divine skills activated, boosting defense and healing allies, and from the back a strange green spell was being cast, prompting the captain to warn this was their one chance for victory. And our boys smirked, watching the plan unfold perfectly. As the second row unleashed their combined ultimate attack, the faces of the raid team showing their unshakable resolve, while the captain held a golden dome against the beast, which charged a final overwhelming blast. But suddenly the captain's body began to pixelate and fade. The raid members' magic sputtered out in confusion, and the monster's attack fired without any opposition, spreading panic as the team realized their leader was gone, while a system alert flashed: user Kim is being forcibly logged out. And a rescue request was immediately accepted. In the real world, the captain thrashed in his bed, jolting awake with a start to find a cat on his chest, and he immediately scolded the cat for ruining the raid's critical moment. A scream ripped through the quiet streets, echoing across the empty sky. We cut to a tense boardroom meeting, where the topic was the virtual world Metaria, a world where people now commute for work, building new lives and entirely new identities, where in-game classes have become real-world careers. And the top-ranking players are now celebrities, earning fame and unimaginable wealth. But with real money comes real-world law, a lawyer explained, presenting the Raid Boss Special Act, a new law allowing compensation for failed raids, meaning high-stakes dungeons with massive rewards now require legally binding contracts, and this, he said, is the invoice for a broken one, as 15 mercenaries are suing their raid leader Kim, their claim totaling over $1 billion in damages. And Kim, the raid leader, had agreed to pay it all. He left the law office utterly defeated, but a former guildmate ran up to him on the street, asking if the rumors were true. Did Kim really sell his gear? And Kim confirmed it was the only way to pay the debt. He sold everything, his entire legacy in the game, his legendary armor, his priceless weapons, all of it gone, which left his guildmate confused why attempt a solo run now, and his former colleague then announced he was quitting, making our boy Bao blaming himself for all of this. But the man simply offered him a farewell gift. Though he felt he couldn't accept his boss's gaming rig, Mr. Kim insisted, pushing the box into his arms, and they parted ways with a final somber wave. He returned to his quiet, empty apartment, and utterly defeated, he slumped against the door. His plans ruined, his future completely uncertain, but his cat Pipeju wanted to play despite its cast, so he gave in, agreeing to just 5 minutes, getting the feathered mouse toy ready, and as he started to warm up, the cat watched intently. Before Pipeju leaped with surprising agility, making a small smile finally break through his gloom, as he saw how restless the cat had been, and with renewed purpose he declared the hunt was on, watching the cat stalk towards a cardboard box fort, so he got serious, ready to channel a perfect mouse, making the bait skitter across the floor as he expertly maneuvered the toy around furniture, while Pipeju tracked the target from the shadows, and when the mouse dangled just above the box, a paw shot out, striking with perfect precision, sending the cat tumbling, lost in the thrill of the chase. He continued to tease the injured cat with the toy, as our boy tried to get his cat Peju to play a little more, and the cat struggled into its cardboard fort, making him smile, finding the moment precious. While Peju, though annoyed, still batted at the toy, its hunter instincts finally taking over completely as it lunged with surprising speed. Later he prepared a special meal for it, continuing their game from a safe distance, but he worried deeply about Peju's recovery. The vet's warning echoing in his mind, and he remembered explaining Peju's high energy, knowing he needed a way to help without causing more harm, when a notification flashed on his phone, a hospital bill he had completely forgotten about, reminding him he was broke, his living expenses gone. So desperate he pulled out an old box, which held some leftover gaming gear, telling the cat it was partly responsible for this mess, before putting the empty box on his head, a strange solution to a past mistake. When the clock hit midnight, it was finally time. He said goodbye to his pets, lying down as he prepared to log in once more, entering a world of fire and rock. He was taking a huge risk for a potentially big reward, since fishing in a lava zone with no gear is suicide, and he was banking on 6-year-old game knowledge, though he knew the game had changed since then. But suddenly a massive fish took the bait, proving his old secret spot still worked, and this lava trout was a high-tier crafting item, so he settled and ready to grind for cash. Dropping his line back into the molten rock, and for the first time in ages he felt at peace, because the last 5 years were a non-stop grind, and though he'd lost everything he felt strangely calm, trying his best to ignore the tears welling up in his eyes. But then something violent shook his line, shocking him since nothing should be respawning yet, and he wondered if the Phoenix boss was back early when a massive portal ripped open the sky, and a pillar of light slammed into the ground, revealing a creature of ethereal flame. But this was no Phoenix. It was a new monster, a raid-level boss, and he was too close to escape, too weak to fight, having only caught a single fish so far. And now this monster was camping, his only source of income, as its massive jaws closed in around him, and a massive tongue suddenly licked his face, the giant beast just giving him a taste. So he endured the slobber, tears of frustration in his eyes, unable to understand what was happening, wondering, is this how he dies, licked to death? And he screamed for a quick, clean end to it all. Fed up, he told the beast to just finish it, vowing to return one day for his revenge. But the creature just stared down at him, then it leaned in and let out a meow, leaving our boy completely and utterly baffled as the impossible sound echoed again, and his mind just could not process this, though he was certain he heard a deep gruff meow, meaning this terrifying monster was a cat. And suddenly an idea sparked to life as he glanced down at his fishing rod, thinking that if it really is a cat, then maybe some bait could be a distraction. So he offered it a treat, a desperate gamble, and with nothing left to lose he cast the line, sending the bait flying through the air before he turned and ran for his life. The reel spinning wildly, it was actually working as the giant cat beast pounced after the lure. He refused to give up his catch so easily, pulling back hard on the fishing rod, but sharp claws gripped the other end, and the small creature transformed into a hulking beast, which yanked the rod, sending him flying through the air. As the beast claimed its prize, reverting to its small form to eat the fish, swallowing the entire thing in one single gulp, its eyes glowing with a sudden surge of power, a look of pure satisfaction on its face, and then the creature leaped from the cliff edge, diving towards him wreathed in crackling energy, and our boy could only watch in horror as a massive blast of power erupted, shattering the ground from the sheer impact, and from the dust a majestic wolf spirit emerged, leaving him stunned, wondering what this creature was. As the spirit wolf stared him down, its massive paw landing right beside his head, and it leaned in close, inspecting him carefully, before the beast gently pushed him onto his back and began kneading his chest just like a cat. But its sheer size was absolutely terrifying. He was dead now, a ghost at the graveyard, so he needed a new plan and opened his map, which revealed his destination was still the lava zone, and he sprinted through the wasteland praying the beast was gone. But a heavy paw slammed him to the ground again. As the monster stood guard over his previous corpse, it wasn't leaving, it was just waiting for him to respawn for another kill, and he realized there was only one way out of this. As a desperate plan formed in his mind, he had to get close to the beast, which seemed to be resting near his body, its eyes closed completely still, presenting an opportunity he didn't expect. And the resurrection light flared up right beside the monster. He was back and the beast was still asleep. So slowly he tried to sneak away, knowing each step was a terrible gamble, when a single claw extended from its paw, and as his foot touched down, its eyes flew open. The massive creature loomed over him, and he realized it had been faking sleep all along, as a giant paw snagged his cloak, yanking him back with terrifying ease. The monster's gaze locked directly on him, and it lunged with incredible force, sending our boy flying once again. As a death notice appeared on his screen, and the scarred lion beast looked utterly confused by this. But our boy got a chance to resurrect a new plan forming in his mind. He was going to use his old military training, and with a flash of light he was back in the game. Immediately dropping to the ground, playing dead and motionless, he peeked at the beast, which just lay there watching him, so he held his breath waiting for his chance, his eyes slowly cracking open as he prepared to make his move. But suddenly the beast was right in his face, and he realized it reacts to the smallest sounds. Then the monster started licking him again, trapping him, horrified by the creature's actions. Convinced he'd definitely gotten involved with a psycho, back in reality he screamed in pure frustration, thrashing on his bed absolutely furious, and he decided to just go to sleep convinced it was over for the night, getting up annoyed by the game's bizarre mechanics. When his gaze landed on something familiar, his cat was asleep with its head in a toy helmet, and a small smile crossed his face, as he called out to his pet PPIJJU. But then he stopped, a strange thought connecting in his mind. A sudden impossible thought that struck him, as he remembered the beast's X-shaped scar. It was in the exact same spot as his cat's scar, and he considered the impossible connection for a moment, before laughing it off as a wild coincidence, because a cat can't log into a game after all. The next day he resurrected, praying the monster was finally gone, and he looked around hoping his fishing spot was clear, as the desolate landscape seemed completely empty, but his hope quickly turned to pure rage. When a massive form leaped through the air, and the beast landed right in front of him again, leaning in close to let out a soft meow, and he was completely fed up with this world, as the creature took a heavy step forward, its massive body looming over him, so our boy squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for impact, but instead of an attack it stretched playfully, then it turned and presented its backside to him, leaving him staring utterly baffled by the gesture, when a strange new thought entered his mind. And a system message appeared. He was now Kim Butler, being forced into a class he had never even heard of, and panic set in as the dark energy swirled. A massive vortex of power consuming him completely, a vortex of dark energy swirling around him, and he landed completely transformed. A system window flashing, application complete. His new class was now Butler. He was in disbelief, his entire paladin build was gone, and a powerful voice called out his new title, making him realize it was a telepathic message from the giant beast, which introduced itself as Kalinus, a legendary conqueror. But our boy was distracted by its awkward pose. As Kalinus explained, its body was paralyzed from the summoning, and he wondered if this was some kind of random quest, where the reward was something called RPP, but the great beast could only meow pathetically, leaving our boy utterly confused, so he gave the giant creature a solid smack, and Kalinus was shocked by the sudden discipline, as the MC vented his frustration at the absurd situation, so Kalinus offered to change him back. But he paused, pulling up the butler job info, realizing the duties were more like a glorified cat sitter, when a notification of his massive debt flashed before his eyes. And suddenly negotiating this job seemed like a very good idea, while Kalinus waited, flustered by his new butler's silence. So he introduced himself with a confident smile, Kim Butler, and he claimed to be an expert in feline care. The new butler challenged the beast's doubt. Reading its body language, it was clearly wary, so he approached slowly like taming a wild cat. And the beast leaned into his touch, letting out a surprising meow, as he promised to be the best butler it could find. But a system window revealed its high anxiety, and suddenly the beast spotted something in the distance, making him realize it was time for monsters to respawn, as a small fiery salamander appeared, and the butler explained he's analyzed its condition, his diagnosis being severe anxiety, which he blamed on the unfamiliar territory. But the beast rejected this, vowing to conquer this land. And the salamander was caught completely off guard, as the wolf beast lunged at its prey, its stress level spiking during the chase, and a sudden blinding flash erupted, its eyes glowing with intense focus. It struck but only managed to catch the tail, so the salamander escaped, its stress rising even further, and the butler saw his chance and sprinted forward. As the small monster prepared a fire attack, he activated a unique skill, Capture, and a beam of light trapped the creature, securing it. A shimmering blue portal awaited, and a polished shoe stepped through. As Kim the butler emerged, mission accomplished, offering a gift to soothe his master's anger. A flashback revealing his method, crafting a target, and he presented a small lizard to the great beast, whose eyes burned with a cold fury as the tiny creature trembled before its doom, and a massive paw smashed down, releasing all its pent-up rage. The service was a success, the master's stress level dropped, and the beast confirmed it felt much more relaxed, so with his master calm it was time to negotiate. As Kim boldly requested time off and a proper salary, but the beast was stunned by the idea of a butler having a life, and this very concept darkened the atmosphere, but Kim nervously held his ground, confirming his needs. However, the master revealed a critical flaw: it has no money, so Kim pivoted, suggesting he keep all the hunting loot instead. And since Kim must guide its body, the beast agreed to the deal, so he happily accepted the new terms. He'd been worried about his old fishing income, but monopolizing a party's loot is far more profitable, and he clenched his fist, a new path forward now secured. The beast lost interest and wandered off, and Kim saw it as just a big cat preparing for his final task, as the butler channeled raw energy into his hands, and a system notification confirmed the dish is ready. He considered the prompt to notify his master, when a massive wolf-like beast appeared, drawn by the scent, making him realize treat crafting is a summoning skill. And the beast's eyes widened in surprise. As it devoured the food in an instant, the bowl licked clean as the beast demanded more. So the butler scrambled to obey, a new plan forming as he quickly harvested materials from a fallen monster. A system window confirming the loot was acquired, and with his master motivated, the hunt began, a smirk spreading across his face as the beast tore through a newly spawned creature, while the butler watched the chaos from a safe distance, profiting without lifting a single finger. This was the power of auto-hunting. As the beast effortlessly cleared the field of monsters, and he promised to keep providing the best service, and so he began crafting another treat. While the massive beast waited patiently for its reward, and with the area clear he checked his quest log, seeing a new tutorial quest was available, his next objective being to travel to a nearby village, but he had one very large problem to solve first. This beast's stress would spike whenever it left its territory. Its eyes staring down into the bubbling molten landscape below. And the butler watched carefully as the creature inspected a glowing orb, before announcing that he had formulated a plan for his master, explaining they must travel to a village and gather crucial information. A task the master agreed to even as the butler admitted it was a quest, but the beast's powerful territorial instincts were a problem preventing it from leaving. So the butler recalled how defeating other monsters had expanded its domain in the past. Realizing that to move freely they first had to defeat the phoenix, the fiery ruler of this zone, the master immediately questioned the creature's strength, learning it was an immortal bird that only grew stronger every time it revived. But he was unfazed, declaring it would fall before his power regardless of its nature. There was a problem, however, as the phoenix was a creature of pure flame, and a cat's instinct is to flee from fire, a primal fear he would have to overcome. Suddenly, the beast's entire body seized up, collapsing to the ground, where it thrashed and rolled completely out of his control, landing in a heap as he admitted the butler was right about the fear, demanding his attendant use any means necessary to help him conquer it. The butler's solution appeared almost instantly, a strange scaly fish, which the beast cautiously approached as it lay on the ground, unaware of the butler's twisted plan, which involved a quick dip in lava. He stood over the molten sea, a fishing line tied directly to his master, prompting the beast to question if this body could even survive such intense heat, which led the butler to reveal a critical fact: he was in fact a boss monster, a shocking revelation that seemed to surprise even the butler himself. With newfound confidence, Kim Butler cast his line into the lava, but a sound from behind suddenly caught his attention, revealing the beast sitting on a rock looking completely unimpressed, for it had already lost all interest in the strange fish, deciding such a prize was simply not worth a swim in lava. Unfazed by this setback, Kim Butler simply moved on to Plan B, activating a powerful return spell, and promising the monster that he would be right back. The beast immediately began to panic, consumed by a sudden fear of abandonment, as it watched him begin to dematerialize before its very eyes. Leaving the creature to pace anxiously by the molten river's edge, he teleported away, arriving in the bustling Serentium city, and headed straight for the adventurer's storage facility, where the shopkeeper greeted him with a warm smile, as he requested a very peculiar and specific shopping list, consisting of sugar cane, spring water, and dynamite, all to tame a monster, he explained with a cheerful demeanor. As he was leaving, he felt a nagging sense that he was forgetting something, and then a sudden realization hit him with full force. He needed one more crucial item for his plan to succeed. Back in the fiery realm, a massive gnarled tree stood against the heat, its powerful roots digging deep into the lava itself. And he threw a grappling hook onto the fire-resistant wood, climbing up before dangling a lit bundle from his position, the bait being sugar cane, the monster's absolute favorite sweet. The man in the suit recalled a key weakness of his target, as a creature began to sniff the air from the nearby shadows. While he waited patiently perched on a gnarled branch above, a tiny flame creature erupted from the darkness, claiming to be the mighty Cerberus, and it roared with all of its might, but in his hand it was just a small flickering flame. The little creature happily nibbled on the sweet offering, as he revealed his true weapon, a bottle of ethereal spring water, which he poured down from his perch high above, instantly dousing the flames and revealing a shocked fire rat. It squealed in pure rage at the sudden deception, while he mocked the creature, calling it cute. Finding the rat's tough act only made him more amused, it tried to sound intimidating, boasting of its incredible power, and even offered to spare him in exchange for the sugarcane gift. But the man just laughed at the tiny, ridiculous threat. The rat soon realized its flames were completely useless while it was wet, and enraged it lunged forward to attack him directly, zipping past him in a blinding flash of movement. Before the rat leaped back towards the lava seeking safety, it dove straight into the molten pool without a second thought, and he smirked, knowing the special water had removed its flame resistance, causing the rat to immediately scream in agony from the heat. It scrambled frantically out of the lava, its tail smoking and charred. And defeated, the creature lay whimpering on the ground. A system tutorial suddenly appeared explaining the process of minion creation, followed by the image of a gloved hand holding a silver platter. As a butler carried the dish, a terrified voice trapped inside, where a tiny pink creature panicked under the heavy lid. The butler coldly called it a necessary sacrifice for his master, which made the creature freeze, shocked by this terrible news, and it wailed about its cruel and unfair fate, its desperate cries for help echoing from within the platter. The butler then offered a deal: survival in exchange for obedience, and the creature instantly accepted, begging for instructions. Option 1 was to become the master's loyal minion, which guaranteed complete immunity from the master's attacks, while Option 2 was to betray the master by pushing him into the lava. The creature quickly agreed to the first option, holding him to his promise, so he summoned the minion creation interface and pressed the glowing start button. A brilliant magic circle ignited on the ground, enveloping the small creature in its radiant light, as immense power surged through its tiny body, completing the transformation in a blinding flash. Steam began to curl from beneath the silver dome as a monstrous beast waited patiently by a river of lava, and the butler approached his master with a confident stride. The master, a great beast, asked why Kim Butler was so late, and Kim Butler presented his offering, promising a thrilling surprise. A puff of smoke erupted right before the beast, and the monster peered curiously through the strange lingering haze, hearing a faint squeak confused by the unfamiliar scent. A tiny mouse appeared from the smoke, making the beast feel strange, as its heart pounded with an unfamiliar and thrilling excitement. The small creature stomped its foot with surprising confidence, triggering a flashback that revealed the butler's mission for Squeaky, who now must guide its new master for their greater cause. Using a speed potion, Squeaky dashed off into the distance, and the chase began across the barren, fiery landscape. As Squeaky leaped gracefully across a wide chasm, the beast followed close behind, landing hard on the other side, and it roared, vowing the little mouse would not escape its grasp. But Squeaky was clever, leaving a trail of fire in its wake, causing a wall of flames to erupt in the monster's path. It leaped cleanly over the blaze undeterred, as the mouse continued to lead the beast through the winding canyon, where the butler waited patiently by a narrow passage. He realized the monsters were far too close together, and knew he must detonate the bomb to ensure his own escape. A beast lunged forward, its claws glowing with immense power, and Squeaky realized that Kim Butler had tricked it. A man with spiky hair screamed for Squeaky to run, but the monster's glowing eyes locked onto the man instead, and it slammed him hard into the ground with brutal force. The pink mouse apologized for the failure and quickly fled. But the beast gave chase, instantly hot on its trail. As it disappeared into a narrow, dark crevice, the wolf stopped, sensing that something was wrong, as the path opened into a hellish, unfamiliar landscape. The mouse waited on a lone rock spire in the distance, but suddenly the beast landed right behind it, glowing with power as he declared there was no escape. The mouse, now wearing a tiny bow tie, offered a game, taunting him to a chase before leaping away into the void. The wolf dove headfirst into the abyss without hesitation, and a moment of pure shock hit him as he fell, twisting desperately in midair to avoid the fatal drop. On the cliff above, his master suddenly appeared. As the beast clung to the ledge, barely saved from the fall, he thought for a moment that his master reminded him of a pet cat, and the master asked about this family he was supposedly supporting, calling him a cute but overly competitive creature. A memory surfaced of a real cat's gentle touch, as the cat pulled back for a moment, hesitant, before committing, placing its soft paw on his hand. This distant memory brought a faint smile to his face, and he offered his own hand, promising to lend his courage. But then he suddenly shoved the beast's paw away. The wolf plummeted into the chasm as his master watched completely unmoved, and the small beast dove into a sea of churning lava. The man in black watched as his companion submerged completely, only for it to emerge larger, now finding the heat surprisingly pleasant. With its fear of fire finally gone, it was ready to hunt the phoenix. They moved together through the molten landscape, as the beast explained how the phoenix grows stronger with each revival, but his subordinate Kim Butler assured him he had a plan. From the lava ahead, a fiery form began to rise, and the phoenix appeared, mocking their foolish challenge. This vast fiery arena would set the stage for their battle. As the winged beast crouched, watching its prey with burning eyes, the master knew the beast Kalinus could fight it, but its immortality was the key, so the plan was to strike its core during the second resurrection. Kalinus expressed doubt that its body could handle such a task, but Kim Butler confidently promised he would make it possible. The phoenix swooped down from the sky to attack, its eyes burning with an ancient, terrible rage, and Kalinus charged forward to meet it head-on. A torrent of fire engulfed the entire battlefield, but the beast split into two, expertly dodging the flames, and wreathed in blue energy it leaped through the air, its claws tearing deep into the flaming bird. Kalinus slammed the phoenix hard into the ground, and the creature dissolved, vowing to rise once again. Kim Butler reported to his master that Phase 1 was complete, knowing the phoenix would return twice as large and destructive. A ball of fire began to spin rapidly in the air, as flames erupted from it, slowly taking shape, and a torrent of fire blasted forward with incredible force. The resurrecting phoenix was born from the ashes, vowing to turn them all into dust. The beast roared, facing the raging inferno without fear, and leaped directly into the wall of fire. While the phoenix soared through the burning sky above, it dove down like a blazing comet aimed right for them, and the MC and his beast stood together waiting in the flames. He revealed the next part of the plan: to attack when it slows down to rise again, and his companions leaped into the air, intercepting the target. The beast dodged a series of fiery blasts, closing the distance, and latched onto the phoenix in the middle of its flight, holding it trapped in its powerful grip. A massive explosion of light and power followed, and the MC was stunned they had caught it so easily. The defeated phoenix vowed to rise again and burn everything to the ground, but the beast crushed its head, ending the threat for good. Its fiery essence retreated back into the volcano, and the MC told his small companion to lure the master once again. As he prepared himself for the real challenge was beginning now. Elsewhere, a hooded archer readied their bow to strike, just as a massive explosion erupted from the volcano's peak. The ground erupted in a wave of fire, as the volcano roared violently to life, but this was all part of his intricate plan. He raced along the crumbling cliff edge as the lion beast landed with a deafening crash, facing a tiny pink creature in the dust. It was a showdown of impossible, ridiculous odds, and the beast's tail sent Squeaky flying through the air, but the little guy was simply too fast to catch. He led it on a dangerous chase through the chaos, as a powerful strike missed him by mere inches, luring the beast to the perfect pre-planned spot. A system window appeared before him, and he carefully selected the catapult's final position, beginning the construction with a bright flash of light. In mere seconds, the weapon was fully assembled and ready, and he called for Squeaky to hurry up, telling the little creature that it needed to be brave. Squeaky climbed nervously into the catapult's sling, and with a shout he launched his tiny guide, sending the small rodent flying toward the fiery core. He plunged directly into the swirling flames. As the lion beast dove in for the final attack, a memory surfaced, becoming a minion grants immunity, and Squeaky realized he might have been tricked after all. The butler celebrated his hard-won brilliant success, as he revealed a terrified mouse on a silver platter, and the tiny creature learned this was no paradise. The wolf creature praised Kim Butler's clever and effective strategy, while an announcement declared him the new ruler of the lava zone. His new domain was a massive fiery fortress, and he and the wolf crossed a narrow bridge over the magma below. Inside the keep, a special reward chest materialized, a glowing prize for their incredible victory, which was the reward for a record-breaking clear time. Kim Butler approached the chest, his expectations high, and opened the lid, his eyes widening with shock. A legendary sword and a fiery orb awaited him inside, and he recognized the weapon, the Phoenix Blade Ankinix. The wolf confirmed it was a relic left behind by the Phoenix, and Kim Butler stared in awe at the magnificent blade. He gleefully tried to claim his promised loot, but the wolf creature loomed over him, stopping him cold. So Kim Butler desperately reminded him of their contract. The wolf creature intended to keep its word, eyeing the immortal flame, and revealed the flame was its true prize all along, permitting him to take the sword as his reward. Kim Butler quickly stored the precious items in his inventory, and as the wolf settled down, he thought he was finally safe. Suddenly, a massive paw lunged right for him. As his master panted, looking confused and agitated, Kim realized his master felt betrayed by the exchange, and he tried to explain the loot wasn't stolen, but his master's rage was boiling over, ready to strike. Kim quickly presented a glowing orb, a sphere made of shimmering green leaves, revealing that it was a catnip ball, and he hoped it would work on his feline master. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming, as the giant beast began to roll and purr with pure joy. Kim smiled, relieved that his plan was a success, recalling he had gotten it as a game event bonus, an old item he'd completely forgotten about in storage. Who knew it would end up being so incredibly effective? And now Kim wanted to truly repay his master's help. He opened the auction house menu on his screen, searching for high-quality meat and fish recipes, and scrolled through a long list of delicious options. But his cooking proficiency was far too low to make them. He would need to become an expert chef, and all that past grinding was finally about to pay off. He spent a massive fortune to upgrade his skill, and to fund it he needed to sell something valuable, an old item that was now a rare collectible. He listed it for 14,000 gold, unable to wait any longer, and the Phoenix Blade sold for 14,000 gold almost instantly. A notification rang out. He was now an advanced expert chef, and his master found him studying, intrigued by the promise of a meal. Kim Butler scrolled through his newly acquired cooking skills, considering several exotic monster recipes, but decided fish seemed like the safest choice for his master. He activated his butler skill, treat crafting. Knowing price was no object, he would buy the absolute best. The system warned him that the fish's tail was poisonous, but with his new presentation skills he began his work. He carefully sliced off the dangerous spiky tail, his knife moving with an impossible practiced precision as he scraped away the tough, resilient scales. A jet of pure water cleansed the meat, before he brushed on a final savory glaze. The meal was then lowered into a roaring magical fire, and a perfect glowing dish was complete. He presented the incredible treat to his waiting master, and the beast dove headfirst into the bowl, emerging with the poisonous tail in its mouth, growling. Kim Butler WATCHED in horror. He had eaten the tail first, and a sharp tingling sensation hit the master's tongue. The beast froze, processing the intense and unfamiliar flavor, and gradually the sharpness gave way to a profound sweetness. The master declared the meal a resounding success. As Kim Butler reached for the prepared meal himself, bringing a tempting piece to his own mouth, savoring the flavor deep in thought, his master recognized the rich, complex taste of monkfish, and overcome with satisfaction, the great beast collapsed. He declared it an excellent and novel experience, and the master thanked him for the incredible meal. Kim Butler bowed, deeply accepting his master's praise, and promised that he would work even harder from now on. Their journey then took them into a vast green wilderness. As the master and his butler traveled through the dense forest, the great beast following his new attendant very closely, he assumed this was all just a setup for the next quest, and the butler's loyalty reminded him of his old pet cat. The master asked about the village they were heading to, as he grew impatient with the repetitive, endless scenery. Kim Butler admitted they were lost but remained confident in his abilities, and asked the master for any clues about his distant past. The master revealed he was once a great and powerful emperor, who embraced darkness, dissolving his own physical form, and And while dormant, a voice had called out from the void, which was the desperate cry of his descendants. He returned to this world to answer their call for help, and the very first person he saw was Kim Butler. The master's memory of the past ended right there, recalling how 3 dark kingdoms once stood united, and the butler remembered their 1,000-year-old history. Realizing he now served a living relic of that ancient era, he turned his attention back to his master. And the great beast demanded to know what he was doing. As it reluctantly offered a massive furry paw, Kim the butler began to groom the beast's fur, and the master protested, but Kim was completely unfazed until a surprising request came: do it stronger. Meanwhile, in a remote and hidden orc village, a warrior was sharpening his blade preparing for battle when an elder entered the chieftain's hut. He found Lord Jagger the chieftain looking deeply troubled, and the elder revealed the terrible news: the phoenix's energy was gone. Jagra wasn't worried, but the elder feared it was a permanent extinction, and he warned that the monster would have surely noticed, meaning they had little time to prepare a proper defense. Another orc reported that a hunter Riley was missing, and the chieftain and elder shared a look of pure dread. The entire village mobilized in a state of panic as all eyes turned toward the ominous mountain in the distance. Jagra feared the monster was already on the move, and he cried out the name of the lost hunter. Far away, a cloud of dust rose from the trees, where the beast master stood over his fallen prey, and the butler confronted the massive, unmoving beast. He questioned the tiny mouse Squeaky for being so uncooperative, but Squeaky argued he must keep his promises first, so the butler pleaded, calling the mouse Lord Cerberus. But his continued begging only fueled its growing rage, and the mouse leaped up and smacked him across the face. Through the tall grass, a new stalker was approaching. And as the butler argued, a hooded stranger walked into view. The green-skinned assassin drew a sharp, wicked dagger, while the beast roared, describing its own terror of their master, and Squeaky cried, yelling that the butler doesn't understand true fear. The butler apologized, completely oblivious to the danger right behind him, until Squeaky's eyes widened in absolute horror, and it screamed a desperate last-second warning. A blade sliced through the air, narrowly missing the butler. And the hooded attacker stood there, cloaked in a strange aura. Before it vanished, leaving them searching in confusion, the assassin reappeared right next to the beast's head and lunged forward in a blur of deadly motion, its blade swinging in a silent, deadly arc. But the attack hit nothing but empty air. The assassin stood alone in the clearing, hiding, searching the canopy for its elusive target. High above, the beast floated away in a small, fluffy form. Before landing back on the ground, the attacker, stunned by the miss, a hand shot out from the nearby bushes and grabbed a fleeing orc by the ankle. As a monstrous lion loomed over them, growling, "Found you." The man in the suit flashed a terrifying, predatory grin, and the captured orc begged desperately for their life, their scream echoing through the vast, silent forest. The orc woke up disoriented and hanging upside down, but the man smiled, offering a surprisingly kind word. Claiming they were just lost travelers seeking a village, the orc remembered a horrifying vision of their certain fate, and now they walked together through the woods at sunset. The man called the orc by a name, Riley, and asked if Riley was scared of the beast, to which Riley admitted to being terrified. So why attack? As the three of them paused their journey for a moment, Riley explained it was a rite of passage to prove their worth, and the man was stunned by their incredible recklessness, learning it was all to gain a father's approval. But Riley felt they had failed the test miserably, so the man reassured them of their inherent strength, saying their only mistake was choosing an unbeatable opponent. He told Riley to believe in their own power and praised their skills, calling them a champion monster. This strange term caught both of them by surprise. As a fortified village finally came into view, Riley led them toward her people's outpost, where a female orc rushed out, calling her name with a mix of joy and alarm, and Riley could only wave to her mother, confused by the gathered crowd, when suddenly a massive axe blocked their path, wielded by an orc chieftain who ordered them to halt. And though she insisted they weren't enemies, her father was absolutely furious, declaring their very presence here an act of war. So this butler stepped up, offering to negotiate on their behalf, as they stood alone against the entire garrison, while her mother pulled her back, frantic with worry, turning what should have been a happy reunion into a bitter scolding as diplomacy failed. And with the orcs demanding they leave, the MC decided it was time to act. Quickly weighing his two options, persuasion or overwhelming force, his mind was instantly made up, so this butler stepped forward to address the hostile crowd, revealing his master's true name, Lord Caelinus the First Emperor, commanding them to submit or face the dire consequences. Though an orc elder scoffed at the claim, demanding proof of this ancient legend, just as a tiny creature emerged from the beast's mane, boasting of their recent and glorious victory over the phoenix, and this elder's disbelief shattered at the mere mention of the beast, while Caelinus simply smirked, ready to provide undeniable proof, summoning a swirling orb of pure phoenix flame, whose undeniable power silenced the crowd as they were ordered to kneel. But the orc still doubted his story, so he simply called them suspicious people, then summoned a great ball of fire into his hand, and his butler transformed, leaping high into the air, catching the fiery orb midair and preparing to unleash its devastating power, as the ground erupted in a massive explosion, sending fiery cracks spreading through the earth, while a powerful shockwave threw them all back, filling the village with smoke and dust. And though the orc leader glared in defiance, His anger quickly turned to pure terror, for a terrifying shadow now loomed over him, causing him to tremble, completely overwhelmed by the sight. And so this leader fell to his knees, his entire tribe following his lead, finally recognizing Kalinus as the true Lord of Darkness, a fact confirmed by a system notification of their loyalty, prompting the butler to humbly request praise for his work. And as the night settled over the land, they had finally arrived at the orc village, where Kalinus checked his next quest objective, but something felt deeply wrong here. A sudden and powerful urge to leave washing over him, for the village defenses were dangerously weak, and Lord Kalinus found the entire outpost rundown and distasteful, just as his butler announced he must leave for the night, assuring his master that lodging had been arranged. Before this, butler left to check on the preparations, and we cut to a small thatched roof hut in the village, where a young voice from inside boasted of her new strength. It was an orc girl, Riley, telling her father the village was in grave danger, but he only sighed, tired of her avoiding the real issue. Yet she stood her ground, demanding to go to the battlefield, until her father raised a hand silencing her, and turned his back, refusing to argue again, stating the ancient law, women cannot be warriors. All while outside, the butler listened to the entire exchange, watching as Riley begged her father to reconsider. And later, the orc father sat alone, troubled, when he heard a sound and looked up from his thoughts, seeing the butler standing in the doorway asking about the room. So this orc chief invited him to inspect the preparations, apologizing for his earlier caution at the outpost. But this butler simply smiled, saying his master would understand, before his expression shifted, asking for details on their situation, and this chief agreed to explain as they walked, revealing that a phoenix once kept the local monsters in check. But when Lord Kalinus killed it, the village's safety vanished completely, making this butler realize his master's hunt had destabilized the entire region. And now this village's greatest threat is a giant serpent, one they failed to kill as a baby and now it hunts them. And this orc chief warned it will attack at dawn, so this butler offered to help stop the creature, asking if Lord Kalinus is a ruler who protects his people. And he complimented the chief for prioritizing his tribe's safety, promising to report the threat to his master. And this orc chief looked on with desperate hope, as this butler assured him, knowing this would win their trust. So this grateful chief called over a female orc, who explained they prepared an outdoor space for the master, and this butler was shocked by their choice of lodging, feeling a sense of dread about their preparations, as they revealed a crude tent with bare pelts for a bed, causing him to panic, knowing his master needs an enclosed space, just as a system window prompted him to upgrade the outpost. And he realized the tutorial was guiding him once again, so he thanked the female orc for her efforts, then asked to make some improvements himself. And this female orc gratefully accepted his offer. So he selected the living area to begin the upgrade, where this option to customize caught his eye, and he remembered earning points by satisfying his master, deciding to invest those points again, knowing exactly how to build the perfect space. And this butler was tasked with designing a home for his master. So he sketched a simple multi-level tower on a screen, and with a single touch he began the construction. As power surged from his outstretched hand, this ground glowing as the upgrade began costing him points, and a tower of pure energy erupted into the night sky, solidifying into a bizarre multi-tiered stone structure, which this orc stared at in disbelief, calling it a divine miracle, just as Lord Kalinus arrived, questioning his new living quarters, inspecting the tower with a critical eye. Before in a single bound he scaled the strange new home, settling on the highest perch, surveying his domain, and this master found the spot to his liking, a fact this butler proudly informed the orcs of his master's approval, and the relieved orc offered his help anytime. So Kalinus entered the base of his new stone den, where a soft rug awaited him inside the chamber, and he let out a massive yawn, ready to rest. But this butler asked for intel. A great serpent is coming tomorrow, explaining this is their chance to earn the orcs' full trust. Though Kalinus was unconcerned, certain of his own strength, and a system notification confirmed the butler's success and rewarded him, while Squeaky the mouse panicked, fearing another dangerous battle. So this butler asked for the mouse help, but Squeaky flatly refused. But unfazed, the butler revealed he had another plan, telling this man the great beast should rest well. And back in reality, our boy finally logged out, recalling the wild events, wondering what's happening to him, when a sudden meow broke his concentration, his cat Lulu being unusually insistent. So he looked over at the food bowls, seeing Peepage, who hadn't touched its food, still sleeping, and worried he checked the cat for a fever. But this temperature was normal, though something felt off. So he gently tried to wake the lethargic cat, and Peepage, who finally stirred with a huge yawn, seeming completely uninterested in eating. But placed before its bowl, it finally began to eat, the two of them sharing a quiet meal. And while eating, he researched his next in-game target, finding it the king serpent, a high-level boss, with player comments describing its incredible defenses. And this strategy was to break its scales, then use fire. So he grinned, knowing this prey would please his master. And now he just needed to choose the right prey for his own pet, since Peepage seemed so unwell. He decided to bring out a secret weapon, calling out, but the cat looked completely unimpressed, as Peepage gave him a look of total disdain. So he got serious, determined to make the cat play. And back at home, the injured cat looked smug, but it suddenly stopped playing, ignoring the toy, leaving our boy completely baffled by its behavior, as he asked his pet what could be wrong, when from the couch a helmet suddenly spoke. And this next day he logged into the game as Kim Butler, where a small pink creature immediately cried out his name, rushing to him warning of big trouble. So Kim Butler asked what's wrong, and this creature declared their master had vanished. So he suggested a walk, but the creature had searched everywhere, panicking because the serpent is coming today. But Kim Butler had a plan to summon the master, activating his butler skill, treat crafting, and instantly a bowl of ostrich stew appeared. But when he tried to send the notification immediately, an error message flashed. The signal cannot reach the master, causing Kim Butler to freeze in disbelief before he bolted outside screaming in panic, frantically searching the empty village, as this small creature watched utterly defeated. Far away beyond the village lay a dense forest, and hidden within was the mouth of a dark cave, where deep inside the oppressive blackness, a giant serpent with glowing eyes began to stir. As deep in the earth a colossal body scraped against stone, and this great serpent uncoiled, slithering toward the light. And in the village the orc elder gasped in shock, as Lord Jagra's eyes widened with fear, crying, "It has started moving." But this orc warrior smiled, sensing the approaching energy, and this elder questioned his strange happiness, reminding him of their lord. But this warrior was thrilled, believing their village's nightmare was finally over. So they walked through the village, the elder's doubt lingering, and arriving at a stone building they startled the butler, who stepped out announcing his master was away, leaving this orc stunned that their lord was gone at a time like this. And this butler confessed he couldn't locate his master either, causing this warrior to roar, accusing him of keeping Kalinus in the dark. But this butler stopped them, a grave confession on his lips, as he revealed the terrible truth about his master, and they realized Kalinus was trapped inside the monster's body, as this butler admitted his summoning spell had failed to bring him back. And this warrior's face hardened, knowing this was a fight they must win. So this elder asked if the butler could fight, but he had no combat skills. However, he could use his power to strengthen the village defenses, and this warrior saw a glimmer of hope in this news. Forming a plan, he would hold the line at the outpost, while this butler agreed to fortify the village in the meantime. But this warrior demanded assurance that the village would be safe. A promise the butler could not make, for his power was limited, causing this orc chief to tighten his grip. So our boy gave him a strict order that failure would have consequences, and a system alert confirmed the chief's distrust, making him realize the quest was going too smoothly. So his small companion asked for the plan, and this butler checked his available points, seeing he had only 192 to work with, and he knew the enemy was weak to fire. So he checked his minions' fire abilities, but Cerberus was terrified of its natural enemy, meaning that plan wouldn't work. So he settled on a life or death choice, walking off with grim determination. And nearby a wooden post shattered, where he spotted a female orc training hard, striking the dummy with blinding speed, until she panted exhausted from the effort. And as this young orc finished her routine, he approached, calling her Riley. And she recognized him as the butler, explaining it was just her morning training. So he asked why she wasn't fighting the monster, but Riley said she's not allowed in battle, and he sensed there was more to her story as this orc girl confronted him about his training, then flustered, claiming she just enjoys it. But he smirked, clearly not believing her, suggesting her father was just being protective, and his kind words seemed to reach her. But then his expression turned grim, as he warned her the warriors were outmatched, though she refused to believe her father could lose. So he explained the chief is the serpent's main target, and fear gripped her. She decided to go, and he tried to stop her, but she was determined. So he made a stunning offer, Kalinus's power, a power she would need to defeat the monster, which made her stop, turning back to listen. And elsewhere the battle alarm sounded, as this orc chief rallied his warriors, who charged out to face the great serpent, while a shaman prepared a fiery ritual, and a massive scaled body moved through the trees. As this serpent revealed itself on the path, its glowing red eyes fixing on the warriors, who surrounded the colossal beast, and this chief raised his axe, ordering the attack. So with a furious roar the warriors charged, while this shaman called upon a spirit for battle rage, and this orc warriors swarmed the giant serpent. But a single tail swipe sent them flying. Though this leader held firm, his axe glowing, he realized their weapons were useless, as this serpent's cold eye watched them, and it thrashed, cutting through their ranks. So this shaman chanted a desperate spell, and empowered the leader struck again. And this time the scales finally cracked, making this beast hiss, feeling the blow, before it turned and fled into the forest. So this warriors gave chase immediately, as the serpent slithered toward a river where it coiled, preparing a counterattack, a strange energy gathering in its maw, and a warrior leaped in for a decisive blow. But the leader found its scales had hardened, as green mist began to leak from its body, and he screamed for everyone to fall back. Just as this serpent unleashed a cloud of poison, and he realized it was a deliberate trap, as this poison seeped right through their skin, a creeping paralysis taking hold, and this leader felt his body going numb, helpless as he faced the serpent's final strike, as this giant serpent's maw opened wide, and his warriors screamed for their chief to run. But the orc chief was frozen in terror, giving one last order, lead the tribe to safety, just as this snake's fangs sank into his arm, and it lifted him high, swallowing him whole. While this tribe watched helpless as their leader was consumed, and they were paralyzed by a crushing fear, when suddenly a streak of light cut through the air and a volley of projectiles rained down from above, as another arrow-like blast hit the ground, and a figure blurred through the trees, a goblin girl in a maid outfit leaping into battle, calling for her dad, and she slammed into the serpent's side with a powerful kick, for this beast still had her father in its jaws, and she screamed his name in desperation. While inside the chief was being crushed, his bones beginning to crack and splinter as he was pulled deeper into the monster's gullet, and he gasped for air, believing this was the end, his eyes slowly closing as he gave in to the darkness. But then he heard a familiar voice, Riley's, and this snake suddenly recoiled, struck by an unknown force, its head covered in a strange expanding foam, and this giant serpent struck, spitting a paralyzing agent, turning its glowing red eyes on the maid. But she showed no fear. Her daggers drawn, she prepared for battle, and this butler rushed to Lord Durgan's side. As his tiny companion activated a skill growing massive, and he reached the fallen orc lord, but even in its giant form the creature was terrified, so this butler ordered a full retreat, loading Durgan onto its back, and nearby the other orcs began to stir, seeing their unconscious lord being carried away. So this butler ordered them to evacuate to a safe place, warning them not to interfere in the fight. As this serpent lunged forward with incredible speed, and this maid dodged the devastating attack, sprinting up its massive scaly back, her dagger poised to strike a vital point. But she realized the beast was too fast, so she pushed her own limits, accelerating. But a sudden tail whip sent her flying, throwing her helplessly into the sky before crashing back down to earth with a thud, and dazed she admitted she couldn't match its speed. Elsewhere someone groaned, waking up, as Lord Durgan finally regained consciousness. And this orc chieftain asked who was fighting the serpent. But this man in black hesitated to answer, as a distant crash echoed through the forest, and he delivered the shocking news his daughter was fighting, causing this chieftain's face to contort with fury, and this man in black told the injured orc to stay down, but he raged, blaming the monster for endangering his daughter. While in the battle, Riley was cornered by the serpent's tail, and this massive tail whipped down to crush her, creating a huge explosion of dirt and rock. But she emerged from the dust, wounded but standing, as this serpent stared from across the clearing, and Riley was sent flying from the sheer force of the blow, digging her daggers and grinding to a halt, and her father screamed her name in absolute terror. But this butler calmly told him she was fighting well. As Riley rushed back into the fray, daggers ready, leaping onto the serpent's massive body, and with a fierce cry she prepared to strike, her blade clashing against the creature's tough scales, prompting this chieftain to ask why she was wearing a maid outfit. And this butler explained it was the uniform of Kalinus's minions, that she joined them to gain power and protect her tribe. So her father asked the only question that matters, can she win? And this butler admitted she was outmatched but believed she could. So Riley leaped and spun, her daggers flashing, landing a sharp blow on its massive tail, her blade sparking against the hardened scales, and again she struck without hesitation, causing this giant serpent to roar in frustration, whipping its tail, sending her flying. But she had already adapted to its movements, driving her dagger into its hide once more. As this battle echoed through the valley, and this orcs observed, doubting her strategy, seeing the serpent was only protecting its head, while Riley became more impatient with every passing second, her eyes locked on the target, until she finally got an opening to attack its head. But this serpent coiled, drawing her in, leading her on a desperate chase, and this orc leader saw the serpent's true intent, screaming a warning, "It's a trap," as a voice instructed her to break its scales with all her might, and Riley's eyes began to glow with raw power, as she stomped down, gathering her energy, soaring high above its toxic breath, her dagger beginning to glow with a red aura, and she plunged the empowered blade into the beast. As this onlookers watched in stunned silence, and Riley unleashed a furious roar, her flaming fist connecting with a deafening crash, as she drove the attack downward with all her might, and this serpent's head smashed into the earth. A brutal impact that ended the monster's rampage, but the power faded and Riley collapsed in pain, the giant snake lying motionless, its eye socket smoldering. And on a nearby hill, orc scouts witnessed the aftermath. Seeing this colossal beast was finally dead, so the scouts erupted in a cheer and charged forward, as this entire village celebrated their newfound hero. But this orc chieftain watched the scene, his face grim, and this man in the suit questioned the chieftain's choice, explaining he saw Riley's rare potential long ago. And this chieftain revealed his daughter always dreamed of being a warrior. So this man in the suit smirked, asking what comes next, but her father remained silent, lost in thought, as this crowd began a roaring chant for their champion, lifting Riley up, cheering her name. And from the edge of the crowd, the man in the suit watched, calling out to Riley. But this chieftain grabbed him, asking if his daughter was safe, just as Riley rushed toward her father, asking about his well-being as he pushed the man away. This chieftain's eyes burning with a new resolve, the chief stood before the tribe, praising his daughter Riley, as he declared her their greatest warrior, apologizing for his past harshness while pulling her into a tight hug, and her eyes lit up with the sudden joyous realization she could finally join the battle, though he hesitated for just a moment, a heavy sigh escaping his lips, before he finally agreed that a warrior's place is on the field, which made her crush him in a powerful, grateful embrace. While the butler watched this touching family reunion from the side, cheekily pointing out her newfound impressive strength, earning a silent, thoughtful glare from the chief, who then turned, admitting his own arrogance toward the butler. An apology the butler accepted, offering his own in return, and a fist bumped his chest in a clear sign of newfound respect, as the entire tribe then turned to thank him for saving them all, a quest notification popping up to confirm his success. And he reflected on the service fees that made this victory possible, a great wave of relief washing over him. But this was after all still just the tutorial, and he knew the real work was only just beginning, so he turned to address the bowing orc warriors, giving all the credit for their salvation to his master Kalinus. a name the orcs began to murmur with a new and profound reverence, which the butler then used to lead them in a celebratory cheer. But the orcs were utterly confused by the unfamiliar word. So Caelenus took a moment to teach them a new victory chant, and soon the entire tribe was roaring in perfect thunderous unison, praising their new lord as they began the journey back to the village, a long march through the dense forest now beginning, during which he praised Squeaky for its courage during the fight, though the little mouse was quick to remind him its assistance has limits, and Caelenus revealed he'd finally found the sugar cane field, but first he explained he needed to interrogate the captured orcs. Because up ahead Riley the maid was waiting for him, stopping him in his tracks because she needed to ask something important, as she was deeply curious about the strange flames that had appeared on her sword, the very power that allowed her to pierce the great snake's scales, an energy she had never felt before in her life, and he told her it was simply her own hidden potential awakening, explaining that her tribe has a natural affinity for the fire attribute. So she asked if he truly believed only she could have done it. Stunned to learn that this incredible power was her own all along, which he smugly confirmed having known of her skills from the start, and she apologized for underestimating herself so deeply. But he just scoffed, reminding her that he's no hero, his harsh encouragement making her blush with a mix of embarrassment and pride, and a new steely resolve filled her eyes as she sprinted ahead ready to train even harder than before, while Caelenus watched her go with a deeply satisfied smile. A system window appearing to display her now impressive stats, but when he checked his resources he found he didn't have enough RPP. His master was still too weak and he needed another way to help her, and then he found a solution, an equipable essence. A low-cost item that offered a massive boost to fire damage, though he thought of his master's constant grueling training, and worried that a sudden unearned power-up might devalue all her effort, making him struggle with how to present this gift to her. But he decided to proceed anyway, hoping she would understand his intentions, and later he arrived at a secluded hut, where inside he began to speak with an injured orc who carefully considered the information he was being given, connecting the strange story to the nearby Noctin kingdom, a failing kingdom he explained that was desperately seeking an ancient power. And the butler realized they were looking for his master lord Caelenus, but the location they were searching didn't make any sense. Until the orc mentioned a mysterious altar, a possible summoning site, which the butler considered investigating before quickly rethinking it, as the orc warned him the altar was impossible to find, and with all the necessary information gathered he finally left the hut, a system notification appearing to announce tutorial stage 3 was complete, giving him a new main quest, find the summoner in Noctin, and though the mouse worried his master wouldn't return, he was certain he would. When a sudden noise from above startled them both, revealing a large cat-like creature sitting calmly on a pillar, and the butler looked up, relieved to see his master had finally returned, which prompted the butler to scream at his master Caelenus, who responded by slamming his head into the butler, sending the man flying before offering a confused apology, as Caelenus claimed he couldn't remember his absence at all, so the butler immediately asked for credit for all his hard work, beginning his report by boasting about defeating the great serpent, claiming his brilliant insight was the only possible solution, and that he had defeated the enemy against truly impossible odds, a story confirmed by a system window showing his master's satisfaction, and the butler was thrilled that his elaborate plan had worked perfectly, using the opportunity to ask for more funds to prepare for future emergencies, a request Caelenus agreed to without a second thought, and soon a new day dawned on the quiet village, where the orc maid shared a tearful, heartfelt goodbye, and the orc warriors pledged their eternal loyalty to Caelenus, as the entire tribe gathered to see the small group off on their journey. But the butler was confused why the maid was following them, and she explained her plan to join a mercenary group in the capital, information he silently processed for a moment, before she proudly declared herself a minion of Lord Caelenus. And so the new party traveled down a long forest path, where Caelenus suggested they find a faster route to Noctin, prompting a small pink mouse to hop off his head in protest, as the mouse argued, demanding they first reach a sugar cane field, while the butler worried about how to keep his master entertained. And just then one of the minions made a sudden run for it, but the giant beast it served remained perfectly still, and the minion looked back confused by the complete lack of a chase, seeing its master's eyes which were cold and unmoving, as he simply asked if the little creature was feeling unwell. And the butler tried to stop them as the master grumbled about disrespect, while another minion taunted him, earning a grim compliment for its bravery, and it even summoned a ball of fire, but the master showed no interest at all, until finally the beast snapped, lunging at the screaming creature, catching the minion with ease and tossing it high into the air. And while the maid despaired, the butler had a new plan, deciding in that moment to summon all his minions at once, opening a dark portal that pulled the small creatures inside, an act that left the maid and the last minion completely baffled, so he explained they were stuck as long as the master refused to move, a dark shard materializing in his gloved hand, his plan being to reduce the master's resistance by lessening his total weight. And with that the butler began to climb onto the massive beast's back, asking if his presence was a bother, which the master confirmed was unpleasant, but the butler insisted it was necessary and the master reluctantly agreed. So he gave simple instructions, just walk and he would guide the way, and the master's massive paws finally began to move, setting off at a gentle walk that was already surprisingly fast, as from high above they traveled down the winding forest path, when suddenly the master broke into a full-speed run, sprinting through the woods like a force of nature. But he was going completely the wrong way, and the butler found him only after a chaotic and destructive battle, where the master demanded a simpler solution for their travel. But the butler feared that any other method might mean losing him forever, until a new tutorial offered a surprising option, a perfect solution appearing right before his eyes, and he activated the master miniaturization feature, a process that began by enveloping the giant beast in a brilliant light, which then erupted into a massive cloud of smoke, and from the swirling mist a tiny form slowly emerged, the once fearsome beast now nothing more than a small cat, his entire world having suddenly grown impossibly massive around him. And the butler was absolutely thrilled with this new portable form, briefly considering summoning a mount for them, but ultimately deciding to carry his master instead. And so they found a much more comfortable way to travel, with the butler taking the reins of a handsome carriage, while inside the others relaxed in surprising luxury, their journey continuing peacefully across the countryside, as the horses pulled them steadily onward toward their destination, until finally the butler halted their progress, his tiny companions resting soundly inside, and Squeaky was woken up with the news that they had arrived, which sent the small creature dashing out into the field, and Squeaky the mouse was utterly amazed by what he saw, for he had found his paradise, a vast bamboo forest, and the butler waved him off with a warm smile, even managing to fake a few tears for the momentous occasion. But Squeaky wasn't letting him off the hook that easy, reminding the butler of a solemn promise to find him a mate. When suddenly a desperate scream cut through the peaceful air, as a massive bird of prey dove from the sky, its target a terrified female mouse cowering below, and the bird snatched her in its talons flying toward the forest. But for Squeaky it was love at first sight, and he dashed off in a heroic determined blur, leaving his stunned companions far behind. A farewell the goblin maid confirmed with a simple nod, and the gray familiar suggested they should probably rest. But the butler was far more interested in getting some treats, which made the maid realize he was just hungry, so he requested some meat and she agreed to prepare it for him. And he activated his butler skill, treat crafting, an idea for the king serpent meat sparking in his mind, as he imagined a perfectly seasoned and grilled dish. And the system asked if he wanted to apply the new recipe, but just then the gray familiar let out a loud, insistent cry, a sound the butler recognized immediately, as it was the same meow his own cat Peepeju makes when asking for food. And he wished his old friend could taste these incredible flavors, thinking it was a shame he couldn't be here with them, knowing that sharing a meal would be such a simple joy, and he carefully began to prepare the fish, dreaming of a peaceful life with his beloved pet. Meanwhile, deep in the dense bamboo forest, a large bird swooped down on its helpless prey, a small mouse fleeing in absolute terror, but another mouse saw the attack unfolding, and it unleashed a sudden, brilliant burst of flame, a fiery ring that hurtled through the air toward the predator, which the bird narrowly dodged with a flap of its wings, glaring down as it locked onto its new target, and the pink mouse scrambled to escape the coming assault, as the predator dove with its sharp talons extended. But a flame barrier erupted around the mouse just in time, a fiery shield that engulfed the attacking bird, which scorched and in pain quickly retreated, and the pink mouse turned to the one he had just rescued, a brown mouse who thanked him for saving her life. And he asked if she was injured in the attack, to which she claimed to be fine, just a little shaken. But her legs suddenly gave out from the lingering fear, and he caught her in a gentle, supportive hug. While deeper in the forest, armed mice called out for someone named Trya, two mice calling desperately for their sister, who they finally found deep within the bamboo forest, safe and sound, explaining how a kind stranger had saved her, and her relieved sisters offered their deepest, most sincere thanks. But the rescuer said he was just helping his own kind, and the saved mouse Trya looked at him intently, shyly asking him for his name, which made him freeze, a deep blush spreading across his face, as a vision of a different life flashed before his eyes, a memory of a mother's love and gentle care, a childhood spent playing happily together, a future of love, marriage, and even shared grief, a whole community to finally belong to, a life filled with shared sorrow and joy. And he considered a new life here protecting them, his heart pounding with a powerful newfound purpose, and he puffed out his chest, making a sudden dramatic choice, declaring that he is Cerberus, minion of the Avatar of Darkness, an answer that left the mice completely and utterly bewildered. And elsewhere, a luxurious picnic was well underway, as the butler presented a magnificent dish of grilled eel, inviting his companions to eat alongside their master, and he demonstrated how to make a perfect lettuce wrap, adding just the right seasonings for the ultimate flavor. Offering the first delicious bite with a proud smile, a piece of lettuce which was offered to Kalinus, as the butler demonstrated the proper way to eat it, and the picnic proved to be a complete and total success, making the green-skinned maid absolutely overjoyed, though he told her to thank their master Lord Kalinus for the meal. But the butler couldn't help but notice his master's expression, as Kalinus looked completely and totally stone-faced. So he explained this was actually a look of pure, unadulterated satisfaction, because internally Kalinus was experiencing a massive flavor explosion, a success that caused the butler's service fee to increase, when a rustling sound came from the nearby woods, and the small pink rat Squeaky suddenly emerged, approaching the group with a clear sense of purpose, and the butler asked why he had returned all alone, to which Squeaky declared he chose loyalty to Lord Kalinus, insisting that serving the Avatar of Darkness was his true calling. The butler, however, said that he couldn't come with them because their journey ahead was far too dangerous for him, but Squeaky insisted he had a solution to that problem. He just needed to become stronger, that was all, and he absolutely refused to be left behind, addressing the butler with a new respectful title, when suddenly more rat-like creatures appeared from the woods, running desperately across the field toward them, pleading for help as they explained they were being hunted, and Cerberus blushed at the unexpected question. As the mousefolk pleaded for help against the vicious eagles, which made him remember his own quest for the hidden tunnels, and a brilliant idea began to form in his mind. So he asked if they could guide him to the tunnels, and they offered a deal: kill the eagles and they would provide a guide. While high above the eagle threat circled menacingly, vicious predators patrolling the clear blue skies, and a massive eagle spotted its prey far below, sending the small creatures scattering across the plains in terror, as an entire flock descended upon them, folding their wings as they prepared to dive. Their attack coming in a deadly silent plummet, turning the open field into a terrifying kill zone. But Riley leaped into action, her daggers already drawn, and Cerberus let out a furious, defiant roar, as fire and steel met the brutal aerial assault, and Riley sliced clean through an eagle, gaining experience, moving like a whirlwind of death as she felled another, while Cerberus unleashed a powerful torrent of flame, the fiery beast incinerating another predator in midair, leaving the battlefield littered with fallen eagles. Victory that caused both Cerberus and Riley to level up, and a mouse creature approached the victorious Cerberus, the little beast looking on its mission finally accomplished, as a small creature peeked cautiously over a nearby ledge, and the maid recognized the pink one as Lord Cerberus, while the other mouse-like villagers watched nervously from a distance, and one villager asked Cerberus to stay with them, as Cerberus blushed, his heart pounding in his chest, the villager confessing a deep sudden connection to him. A scene the butler and his maid watched like it was a movie, but Cerberus knew he must walk his own path, offering a dramatic farewell from afar, a sentiment that seemed to float away on the wind, until the butler interrupted, asking for the summoning altar, which made the villager realize it was all a big misunderstanding, and the sky seemed to clear after the awkward confusion, as they were led to a dark stone cave entrance, and the butler and his maid waved their goodbyes. He looked down at Cerberus, who had clearly made a decision, realizing it was time for a serious conversation. So he explained Cerberus's old role, which was simply to be bait, and Cerberus asked if that's all it would ever be, panicking at the thought that its master had lost interest, which made the maid plead for him to give Cerberus a real chance, but the butler insisted he wouldn't force it to do what it fears, explaining that he thought he was setting it free, but to stay it would have to become much, much stronger, a challenge which Cerberus immediately accepted. And so a new and intense training session began, as the butler warned his two trainees of the coming difficulty, screaming at them for a proper military-style response. But the pink mouse Cerberus decided to talk back, and the butler instantly scolded him for his insubordination, which made Cerberus question his official low performer status. So the butler laid down the harsh rules of engagement, praising the goblin maid Riley over him as an example. And Cerberus was threatened with immediate expulsion from the group, which made him panic, remembering all he had sacrificed to be here, and he quickly apologized, falling back in line, as the butler established a strict military-style command, a challenge Riley eagerly and perfectly accepted, making Cerberus grumble at her flawless attitude, and the butler listed the 3 primary training goals, saying their performance would decide his future methods, and Cerberus shouted his understanding, ready to begin, the first exercise being a simple hunting game, with the goal of reigniting the shrunken lord's interest in play, as the butler wanted to see Cerberus's progress for himself, and the participants took their marks on the field. With a sudden burst of confidence, Cerberus prepared to run, the chase beginning as Cerberus erupted in bright flames, his strategy being to act as the perfect uncatchable prey, and the shrunken lord lunged for the fiery target, the star-marked cat leaping into action with incredible speed, its paw slamming down, pinning the target instantly. The little red creature caught in a surprisingly brief mock hunt, and the butler explained this was a reward for the master, as other creatures played their part, feigning their own defeat, and he coached the terrified one to finish the act properly, a reward then being offered to the victorious cat, who eagerly accepted the leafy, delicious treat. And the hunt was a success, earning the butler a hefty service fee, but the training wasn't over yet, not by a long shot, as the next exercise was announced to be courage training, and the hamster-like creature Cerberus gave a nervous salute, when suddenly the cat transformed into a massive, terrifying beast, and a giant paw crashed down towards Cerberus, the blow missing its mark but shattering the ground, and the butler asked if the target was holding up all right, laughing as he said it's barely been hit yet, a flash of red terror crossing the creature's face, as Cerberus stared in horror, calling him a devil, and the beast raised its paw for another devastating strike, smashing it down with truly incredible force. And again the ground cracked and split under the blow, and again the assault continued, relentless and brutal, the creature somehow enduring the terrifying barrage, the entire landscape now scarred by the massive impacts, and the tiny fire mouse erupted in flames, defiant to the end, a memory flashing of being instantly crushed by a giant paw. Then back in the present, Riley announced it was time for teamwork training, and the maid questioned the plan to use Cerberus as bait. But Riley explained their master might avoid a larger foe. Though the mouse argued they've already faced a giant phoenix, but Riley warned them of even bigger monsters that lie ahead, knowing that guardians are always massive and incredibly powerful, and the maid agreed they must distract the master first, their goal being to provoke him into smashing a huge rock, because the more he wants his target the stronger his punch will be, and Cerberus vowed to be the perfect most frustrating annoyance, so the team spread out taking their positions around the field. The maid getting ready to throw the bait into the air, while the fire mouse ignited becoming a second tempting target, and with the signal given the training officially began. As she hurled Cerberus just as the master attacked, our boy roaring as he chased the creature with a fiery hand, and the maid braced herself to intercept an incoming fireball, taking the blast just as Cerberus crashed right into her, the little creature landing on its feet and still running. As Cerberus called out trying to redirect the chaotic chase, field becoming a blur of fire and frantic motion, as the master relentlessly pursued his frantic desperate team, lunging forward and snatching the flaming mouse right out of midair, and the butler summoned his monster Cerberus, but today he chose his other companion instead. A tiny mouse that erupted into a magnificent fiery beast, the two monsters facing off across the open field, his eyes narrowing, his focus becoming absolute, as he pressed start, initiating a strange and mysterious process. A ritual beginning at a weathered stone altar, which caused the fiery mouse to become a docile pink creature, while Cerberus transformed into a raging powerful beast, and later the butler ascended a long stone staircase, carrying his master followed closely by the maid Riley, and they arrived at a large circular ruin where he began to frantically search the area, the newly tamed mouse following close behind him, and Riley asked what he was looking for, so he explained he needed to find a key for the altar, having thought the master himself was the trigger. And he asked Riley to hand over their master, lifting the small creature up high toward the sky, but this desperate attempt didn't work at all, which made the mouse think the butler was finally losing it, and Squeaky now pledged his undying loyalty to the butler, a sudden power shift that left the butler completely stunned, as Squeaky suggested returning the master to his true form, and the butler realized the simple, obvious solution had been there all along. As the great wolf materialized upon the ancient altar, the runes etched into the surrounding pillars began to glow with a faint ethereal light, suddenly ripping open a massive crackling portal in the air before him, a clear sign that this altar was finally responding to his immense power, an aura so vast his miniaturized form had previously concealed it entirely, and as raw energy gathered within the swirling vortex of the gate, the light from inside grew to a blindingly bright intensity. The great wolf simply stared down at the gate he had summoned. From its shimmering depths, a single polished shoe stepped out, followed by an old man whose very presence was steeped in a corrupted aura, a figure dressed impeccably as a butler yet radiating a palpable dark energy. And our boy immediately noted the butler's strange, deeply infected state, for the great wolf recognized this man as his old servant Fenrir. A brief fractured flash of a memory appeared, a masked king from a time long past, and as Riley prepared to launch an attack, he quickly stopped her. Watching as the old butler planted his sword firmly in the stone floor, and then dropped to one knee in a gesture of profound deference, greeting the great wolf as his long-lost and cherished lord. His lord acknowledged the 1,000-year vigil he had kept, and Fenrir tried to recall his duty, but his memory was fractured and incomplete, as if something deep inside him had begun to fight back against his will, a struggle that our boy and Riley could only watch in growing alarm. Suddenly the infection flared violently, twisting his features in pure agony, his eyes turning a solid, horrifying black as the corruption took complete hold, and he roared, his body warping and contorting into a monstrous new form, a captured man struggling desperately against a power that was consuming him. He held vital information they needed, but he was fading fast, and the clock was ticking to get what they needed before he was lost forever. Elsewhere, in a different place entirely, a powerful figure descended from the sky, confronting an elder about the recent Serentium invasion, and this elder revealed that an old forgotten enemy had finally returned, speaking a name that carried the weight of history, Morbas. It had all begun, he explained, with the assassination of a prince, an act Morbas orchestrated specifically to ignite the flames of a devastating war, and their forces soon fell to relentless attacks reinforced by strange beings called players, a name that stunned the masked man who had never heard of such a thing. They were beings from another world pouring through a mysterious gate, hundreds of thousands strong, forcing their ancestors into a desperate final move, for Morbas had tried to steal their master's power at the very moment of his awakening, and two opposing factions clashed violently to control the sacred ritual. In the ensuing chaos, the master's consciousness was torn between them, just as a stray cat wandered innocently into the chaotic scene. And the master's immense power, seeking a vessel, found an unlikely host, transforming the small cat into a giant fearsome beast. With no way to communicate what had happened, chaos erupted among the followers, and to protect their master in his new form, they allowed the beast to escape, a creature that eventually took refuge in a forgotten crumbling castle. His descendants then activated an emergency escape device, sending him to an unpredictable location, the world of the players themselves, where they found a player named Kim Butler, a man known to be a caretaker of cats. And the butler explained how they had warped the master directly to him. And now, hearing this story, the masked butler understood everything, asking if their plan to head to Nocton was simply a death wish. but the beast revealed a new path forward to find the hidden altars, making the butler realize they had narrowly avoided a fatal, catastrophic mistake. Suddenly, the beast's eyes began to glow with an unholy light, and its dark energy exploded outwards in a terrifying wave. As it uttered a single guttural command, "Run!" a colossal paw crashed down towards the ground with incredible force, and they scrambled back as the creature's body began to expand uncontrollably, until it towered over them, a monstrous silhouette of pure untethered rage. From high above, a winged demon retreated from the chaos unfolding below, as the master, now a giant wolf, snarled in a display of absolute fury, letting out a devastating roar that seemed to shake the world, shattering the very air around it with concussive force. The butler and his companions dove for cover to escape the blast, and he turned, already preparing a desperate counterattack, as a blast of his own dark energy struck the wolf's massive paw, which was already gathering a sphere of destructive crackling power. A beam of pure annihilation then erupted from its gaping jaws, an attack that carved a massive crater into a distant mountain, and he could only watch, wondering if his master was now lost forever. He assessed its power, stronger than anything he had ever faced before, and from behind cover he continued to observe the raging beast. As the wolf howled again, its power completely unchecked and wild, they could see that Fenrir was in agony, not yet fully lost to the corruption, when suddenly a gray beast roared, calling for the butler by name, and it called out again, a dark sigil flashing in the air nearby. As Riley appeared, declaring this an emergency situation, he quickly shrank the gray beast to a more manageable size. Learning that the giant wolf Fenrir was on a destructive rampage, and this small creature revealed it had a plan, a direct confrontation. With newfound resolve, Riley walked toward the raging white wolf, bracing himself against the beast's immense crushing power, just as a massive pillar was hurled through the air towards him, only to shatter harmlessly against an unseen shimmering barrier. The beast growled, and a voice thanked Riley for his timely help, as he held the smaller version of the creature fisting Fenrir, and the giant wolf glared down, seeming to recognize its other self. While a storm of dark energy began to gather in its chest, Riley realized with dawning horror what was about to happen. Elsewhere, an old man with a monocle gasped in shock, kneeling before a masked warrior who lay unconscious on the ground, and the warrior asked if there was any way to cure the man's affliction, but the old man simply said it was far too late for that. The masked warrior fell silent, a heavy grief settling over him, as the dying man begged for an end to his prolonged suffering. And the warrior promised to help, asking him to just hold on a little longer. Back in the present, Riley held the small creature high for all to see, looking at the raging beast and asking if they were ready to begin. As he prepared to face the corrupted wolf Fenrir head-on, the maid and Cerberus were poised and ready, waiting for the signal, their plan hinging on one clean, decisive strike to the head, and he activated his minion management skill without hesitation, using his stored points to rapidly level up the minion known as Squeaky. He ordered his team into their designated positions, and with a final determined shout, the battle began. The small cat-like minion Riley leaped forward with incredible speed, and the maid watched the small creature go, her heart in her throat. As his minions scattered, launching their coordinated attacks from all sides, Riley powered up in midair, glowing with a brilliant stored energy, while the butler caught a small flaming creature in his hands, and the energized cat vaulted gracefully over his shoulder. As flames ignited on his back while he charged forward, he prepared to throw the flaming Cerberus like a living projectile, unleashing the powerful and aptly named Fire Rat Shot. This fiery projectile soared through the air towards the giant beast, a perfect shot heading directly for its intended target, and it slammed directly into Fenrir's massive glowing eye. The butler watched, knowing exactly what was supposed to come next, as Riley dove from high above, striking Fenrir's head with all his might. And now enlarged to a fearsome size, Riley bit down hard. The maid cheered, seeing their successful, perfectly executed attack, and Riley stood victorious over the massive fallen wolf. While system messages appeared confirming their total victory, the butler took a moment to reflect on their bittersweet success, as a gray wolf gently touched the still form of a fallen white wolf, standing a silent vigil over the body resting on the altar. He nudged his companion, gently trying in vain to wake him. A sad echo of a memory of an old man's spirit fading away, before he vanished completely into a swirling cloud of light, and the white wolf's body dissolved into shimmering particles. The maid approached, asking if her master was all right, and Fenrir admitted that he would need some time to recover from the ordeal, leaving the butler struggling with how to process an NPC's profound grief, wondering how he could possibly comfort his master in this moment. Suddenly, Fenrir turned and presented his backside to him, a gesture that left the butler completely and utterly taken aback. As he slowly realized it was a request for pats, he decided this might actually be the best form of comfort he could offer, but he couldn't help but worry about the awkward timing of it all. So, throwing caution to the wind, he raised his hands hesitantly and began patting the giant wolf's flank with a steady rhythm. The butler tried to explain he was just following the signal he was given, but Fenrir angrily told him to stop touching him at once. And for a brief moment, the butler hesitated, unsure of what to do, but he reasoned it was just a cry for more attention. And so he continued, pointedly ignoring his master's loud protests, calling it a crucial and unmissable bonding opportunity. Fenrir cried out in despair for his lost and shattered dignity. Nearby, Cerberus made a strange request to the maid, asking for a detailed explanation of why petting feels good to felines. While the butler felt increasingly awkward comforting his giant master, clearly flustered by the creature's loud and contradictory reaction, the others arrived on the scene offering to take over the petting duties, but he dismissed them, sending the master away to get some rest. Cerberus admitted the butler's strange actions had stopped it from fleeing in terror, and the small creature then spotted something glinting in the ruins, a mysterious blue light that was glowing from within a pile of rocks. Cerberus bravely scampered off to investigate the strange phenomenon, closing in on the strange, pulsating, glowing object. Meanwhile, the butler was still hard at work padding away, remembering his own despair over what he thought was Fenrir's final fate, and the master revealed that this simple touch was pulling him from his darkness. He thanked the butler, finally feeling a sense of peace wash over him, and the butler offered his help anytime, trying to hide his aching arm, but the master noticed he was trying to stop the comforting gesture and asked him to please continue for just a little longer. The butler, thinking, quickly suggested a compromise, miniaturization, and he resumed his duty, patting the now cat-sized master with a sigh of relief. He began to explain the old game's rigid system of good versus evil, how players were forced to join the side of light, a rule he had always hated, and the master clarified he wasn't doubting him, just seeking to understand. The butler then revealed a new shocking truth: chaos creatures had started the war. And the name Morbas triggered a sharp, violent reaction from the master, as Fenrir vowed to enact a bloody revenge on all of his enemies. From the nearby rubble, a tiny sound could be heard, the sound of a hamster struggling with a massive heavy sword, and the butler turned, hearing the strange commotion. As the orc maid presented their surprising discovery, he recognized the blade, instantly his eyes widening in disbelief, for it was Berhart, the sword of the former head butler, a legendary weapon without a master now being offered to him. He accepted it without hesitation, feeling a new power course through his hands, and the system immediately prompted him to equip the blade, an action that was surprising since his weapon slot had previously been locked. Now for the very first time it opened for him, and the sword's impressive stats appeared, a butler-exclusive weapon. He tested its weight, feeling its perfect deadly balance. Realizing he was no longer a bystander, for he could finally fight, his allies watched, impressed by his surprisingly fluid movements. Their new journey began under a vast and open sky, as a grand carriage traveled through the untamed wilderness, and Fenrir asked the butler for their next strategic move. The butler outlined their plan to find 2 hidden altars, but first they would gather intel in the bustling capital city. Suddenly, Fenrir's ears twitched with a newfound excitement, and he announced that he could finally move them again, testing another part of his new unfamiliar body. He found he could move his tongue, a small but incredibly welcome victory. And Kim Butler was praised for his dedicated efforts in helping him recover, making him wonder if his master would soon be completely healed. Their journey continued onward by carriage through the countryside, but Kim Butler soon brought them to an abrupt halt, for he had found the entrance to an instance dungeon. He was itching to test his new power in a real combat situation, and though his companions worried about the potential danger, he insisted on going in completely alone to prove himself. He stepped through the shimmering portal into a C-rank dungeon, a familiar challenge from his many years of playing the game, gripping his sword tightly, knowing his current gear was weak, but clearing this meant he could better support his master. It was time to test his own personal limits. From the dusty ground, skeletal warriors began to rise, an undead horde that swarmed towards him with silent menace, and he decided to test his defenses first against their assault. Bracing himself for the inevitable initial blow, he easily parried the clumsy strike that came his way, and shattered the skeleton with a single powerful counterattack, before diving headfirst into the fray, becoming a whirlwind of steel, parrying a flurry of blows that came from all sides. He unleashed a powerful, invigorating shout, feeling his body was somehow stronger than it had ever been before, and a single fluid arc of his blade cut them all down in an instant. He smiled, enjoying the satisfying feel of his new weapon, which triggered a flashback to a younger, struggling Kim Butler, standing exhausted amid a field of shattered skeletons. As the endless fight was clearly taking its toll on him, from deeper in the cave, more ominous sounds began to echo, as an entire army of the undead marched steadily toward him, and he decided it was finally time to use his trump card. The skeletal horde roared as one and charged forward, and he activated his sword's ultimate skill, the Fideli Strike, a glowing targeting grid locked onto the enemy ranks, catching the skeletons inside the shimmering, inescapable field. And with a single word, he detonated the stored energy, an explosion that consumed the entire cavern in a flash of light. When the smoke finally cleared, only bone fragments remained, and a system notification confirmed his massive, well-earned reward. The skill was costly, draining his resources, but incredibly effective, and a small creature appeared as his master's voice spoke to him, explaining that the sword Berhart works in tandem with his authority, and his master promised even greater power in exchange for his loyalty. The small familiar then asked if the dungeon was finally cleared, but with no exit in sight, he knew the boss was coming. 2 glowing purple eyes emerged from the deepest shadows, and his master's voice shouted a desperate, urgent warning. As a B-rank skeleton general materialized before him, its massive sword pulsed with a terrifying dark energy. A B-rank boss in a C-rank dungeon. This had to be a trap, and he stumbled back, realizing the grave danger he was in. The skeleton's heavy blade crashed down with immense force, and he dove away just in time to avoid the deadly arc, as the undead knight prepared to finish him off for good. Desperate, he begged for his master's return to save him, and in response a sudden surge of incredible power erupted, as his small companion transformed into a massive, terrifying beast. The skeleton general turned slowly to face this new unexpected threat, and the beast stared down its opponent completely unimpressed, its massive paw rising slowly into the air. Before bringing it down with absolutely crushing force, a system message appeared confirming the instantaneous kill, and his master immediately began to scold his servant for his weakness. But the guy argued that the master was just overwhelmingly strong, explaining that B-rank bosses can sometimes appear unexpectedly in lower-level dungeons, but stronger monsters always meant much better rewards, and he celebrated the incredible loot he had just acquired, when suddenly a new light crackled with a strange energy. A golden dimensional gate opened right before them, which he recognized as a rare and coveted golden goblin gate, and he prepared to summon his minions for the next fight, ordering his team to snatch the goblin's gold at all costs. A golden goblin burst from the portal, a shower of coins flying behind it, and he immediately lunged his sword ready to strike, while his mouse minion Riley breathed a powerful stream of fire. In another place, a massive beast approached a tiny blue slime, and the slime quivered helplessly under its intimidating gaze. As the beast raised a heavy, threatening paw, but the slime suddenly hardened its body into sharp spikes, and then dissolved, leaving behind a single glowing crystal. The beast consumed the gem's power in one gulp, triggering a flash of a memory, a white cat and another slime. The beast stared intently at the crystal's mysterious source. Elsewhere, a golden goblin was on the run for its life, and a man in a suit joined the frantic pursuit, his blade flashing as he scattered a trail of gold coins. He called out rapidly, closing the distance between them. As his blade sliced cleanly through the goblin's sack of treasure, an impact that sent the small creature flying through the air, but it recovered quickly, still sprinting away at top speed. It tore open an escape portal in the fabric of reality, and the man in the suit readied a specialized capture device, but the goblin dove through the portal just in time. A capture failed notice appeared confirming his failure, and he was stunned by the goblin's incredible, unexpected speed. His maid admitted that it was likely impossible to catch, explaining that it was a rare bonus monster designed to escape, but he vowed to capture it the next time they met. For now, they would gather the dropped loot it left behind. The great beast summoned him with a single command, Kim Butler. A glowing crystal remained on the ground, a shard of emotion. The butler knelt down to inspect the strange, pulsating artifact, and a sudden flash of a memory hit him with unexpected force. His master asked if he had seen it too, the same vision, and he described it, a feline predator playing with a small slime, confirming they had both witnessed the exact same scene. But the master felt something more, a strange echo of a past life, and he could sense other similar fragments calling out to him. His companions warned that this was a detour from their main goal, but the master decided they must investigate this powerful feeling. The team gathered the remaining loot ready to move out once more. Night fell across the land, blanketing it in darkness. As their carriage traveled along a winding mountain path, pulled by 4 powerful shadowy beasts of burden, the butler drove as his master in a smaller cat form gave directions from beside him, and he dismissed the grand carriage via a simple system command, summoning a single horse for a faster, more direct journey. They soon arrived at a dense, sprawling and ancient forest, where a flock of harpies suddenly took flight from the high trees. The butler began scaling a sheer, vine-covered cliff wall, spotting the next shard in a nest just as a harpy dove to attack, but his master intercepted with a powerful sweeping claw strike, landing among the defeated harpies. The shard now in his possession, touching it triggered another vision, a white beast hunting a harpy, and the master sensed a third presence in the memory, recognizing the familiar beast. He now rode through a desolate, windswept, snowy land, and from a frozen lake he fished out another shard of emotion, kneeling in the snow as he examined the strange, glowing crystal. This shard revealed a memory of a small white cat, and he wondered if it was some kind of miniaturized predator, which would mean the owner's emotions were somehow connected to them. The landscape then shifted to a warm, sunlit canyon, where a new shard now guided their path forward once again, and another memory surfaced, this time of the cat with a butler. He sat for a moment, finally understanding the feeling he'd been chasing, realizing it was the protective, parental emotion of a guardian. The creature's ear suddenly twitched with intense focus, as it heard the faint, distant voice of the shard's owner, and knowing they were close, he prepared to ride again. The scene shifts to a modern high-tech city of the future, where automated drones patrol the skies between towering skyscrapers, and the focus narrows to a single, ordinary residential building. A man walks purposefully through a brightly lit kitchen, receiving a report over a comms link that nothing is unusual. And he quietly opens a nearby door with practiced silence. Inside, a woman is connected to a complex humming machine, and he watches over her, knowing she is deep in a virtual dive, lying perfectly still, completely immersed in another world. His expression is grim and watchful as he stands over her, and the world she sees inside is a peaceful, wide-open field. The butler arrives in that same vast, empty field, dismissing his horse, which gallops away into the distance, and his master says the shard's owner is just 5 steps away. But the space they seek is hidden by a powerful, invisible barrier, and the butler reaches out his hand touching an unseen wall, as the air ripples revealing the hidden magic that surrounds them. He realizes their foe is powerful, a true master of dimensions, and fearing a devourer of chaos, he quickly opens the auction window. First on his shopping list, a large supply of healing potions, for he knows they can't relax, a raid boss could be waiting inside. He purchases a full stock of recovery items for the whole party. And next he searches for powerful second circle magic scrolls. As the auction house fills with a variety of offensive spells, he buys a wide variety of scrolls preparing for any situation, and with their emergency supplies secured, he tells his master they're ready. They walk toward the invisible gate, now fully prepared for what lies beyond, and his master is impressed as they step through the shimmering barrier. The world on the other side is dark and violent and stormy, as lightning splits the churning angry clouds above, and before them stands a massive rain-lashed mansion. The scene shifts again, this time to a futuristic cityscape, and we focus on the towering headquarters of Coco Games. Inside a sterile office, two employees approach a man at his desk, a man identified as Kim Seong-gu, the chief technology officer. The company president Park Di-sung confronts him about shutting down a project, but the researcher insists they must stop the project immediately. He reveals that his sister's cat died during the experiment, and the white-haired executive asks if the device was to blame. The connection to Meteoria had prevented them from monitoring the cat's health, but the executive refuses to abandon their game-changing technology. The researcher then reveals the true cost: his sister won't wake up, and this shocking news stuns everyone in the room into silence. The executive demands to know if she's just unconscious, but she's been trapped in the game since the moment she logged in. Her brain is only active while she is connected to Meteoria. And the executive dismisses this claim as complete nonsense. His colleague asks about the sister's status inside the game, and he admits they can't locate her even with their admin privileges, as every attempt to find her is denied by the game system. Meanwhile, back inside the game, a player and his cat arrive, and from a high window a monstrous cat watches their approach. It snarls, sensing an uninvited intruder in its territory, and the creature scurries towards its beloved mistress, a ghostly woman who comforts her monstrous mutated pet. With glowing red eyes, she vows to protect it from all harm. And outside, the player opens his inventory in the pouring rain, pulling out a glowing magical appraisal scroll. His target is the ominous mansion that looms before him, and the system begins analyzing the building's strange properties, identifying the mansion as a dangerous, abnormal space. He sensed a chaos domain, a soul in terrible danger, and his companion was eager to investigate, just as something strange approached from the mansion, a simple purple slime that bounced toward them. A creature that seemed harmless at first glance, but then it began to transform before their eyes, and he recognized it instantly, a rare doppel slime, a monster well known for its copying abilities, which took the form of a dark elf assassin blocking their path. But he ignored the warning, asking to see the owner. So this guardian readied her blades for a fight, and our boy simply smirked, accepting the challenge, summoning his own minions from the surrounding shadows, as the two sides faced off on the rain-slicked path. And he decided his minion, Riley, would fight alone. So Riley and another minion charged forward together, their blades clashing in a brilliant shower of sparks, locking the two warriors in a deadly duel. As he watched, then gave a simple command, faster, and Riley braced for a speed she had never known, for the dark elf moved with a blinding quickness, landing a powerful strike that sent Riley flying back, so fast she couldn't even track the enemy's movements, as the elf was just a blur of deadly motion. Until a final decisive blow sent Riley to the ground, where the green-skinned maid scrambled for her daggers, her eyes burning with a fierce defiance, when from the sky a hooded assassin descended, bringing a glowing blade down hard upon them, which erupted in a flash of violent energy. But a man in a suit appeared to block the strike, his own assassins flanking him instantly, as these hooded killers waited for the command, and Kalinus declared it was time for a lesson, while inside the undead cat told its mother the odds were bad, worrying that more intruders would soon join the fight, her expression filling with a deep sense of dread, as the cat screamed, admitting its utter terror. When suddenly two small figures appeared in the courtyard, a pink mouse and a gray kitten standing all alone just as a white streak whipped through the air. This standoff interrupted by a screech from above, as a harpy snatched the small creatures, calling Kalinus master, causing the pink creature to choke in the harpy's tight grip, which forced it to activate a skill called Cerberus, making the harpy lose its hold for just a second. So the pink creature used its tail to save its companion, landing and apologizing to Lord Kalinus for the ambush, while the strange harpy circled high overhead, and the pink creature's tail ignited ready for battle, its single monstrous eye glaring with intent, as the harpy creature summoned a spear of light, unleashing its skill, Spear of Terror, which shattered the tiny target's world in fear, and the glowing spear found its mark, while vicious talons descended to finish the job. Elsewhere, the green-skinned maid held a potion, and she quickly uncorked the vial, drinking the red liquid down in a single gulp, feeling the potion's potent healing effect take hold. While nearby, the butler clashed with a hooded assassin, telling the maid Riley to get back in when she was ready. As the assassin pressed her attack relentlessly, so Riley charged forward, daggers drawn, though her strike was blocked with ease, making her flash back to her moment of weakness. But this memory of healing only fueled her resolve. As the butler continued his defensive sparring, and Riley realized he was just training her, which caused a fierce smile to spread across her face, as she asked if he was worried about their captured master, just as the assassin lunged with a battle cry and Riley met the attack with her full force, this blow sending the assassin flying back, where they landed facing each other ready for more. So the goblin maid leaped into an aerial assault, her daggers clashing against the assassin's sword, though the hooded assassin deflected the attack with a low sweep. The maid just gritted her teeth, refusing to yield, while the strategist observed, noting their HP was now even, and waited, sensing a new power was about to activate. In another part of the battle, the large rat stumbled dazed, as a massive bird of prey loomed over it, and the one-eyed cat mocked the rat's apparent fear. But the rat simply closed its eyes, whispering one down, before its eyes snapped open, burning with a hidden power, as it summoned a Cerberus skill, Flame Barrier. And a fiery roar erupted from the tiny creature, this blast of fire engulfing the entire courtyard, while the one-eyed cat watched from a window completely stunned. Back in the fight, blades locked in a fierce struggle, the two fighters standing off in the purple-lit square, where the assassin's blade glowed with a dark aura, and the goblin maid snarled, her eyes turning crimson, as the strategist watched intently, knowing it had begun. For her orc trait had activated, Berserker Rage, and the assassin thrust forward with her empowered sword. But the enraged maid parried with explosive force, causing a flicker of shock to cross the assassin's face, as she backflipped away, retreating from the new threat, and the goblin maid unleashed a furious slash, her daggers clashing against twin blades, as the hooded assassin held her ground, and Ryle roared, consumed by her battle rage, while steel ground against steel once more. But the assassin's strength was clearly failing as she parried another desperate blow, and her enchanted blades began to crack, groaning under the immense pressure, until they finally shattered into pieces. But another attack was already incoming, so Riley intercepted the final blow, shouting for Ryle to wait, explaining that he needed to question their captive, as the defeated assassin collapsed to the ground, and Ryle seethed, her battle lust not yet faded, until the sound of his name snapped her out of it, and she apologized, admitting she got carried away. But Riley dismissed it, focusing on the now transformed assassin, as the slime begged for death, claiming ignorance. So Riley asked a strange question about its owner's cat, deducing it was tamed as a mere plaything, and he pressured the creature, saying he already knew the truth, until the slime finally admitted he was right, causing a predatory grin to spread across Riley's face, as he needed more points for a skill, planning to get them through play. The doppel slime flatly refused the butler's offer, so he dangled a tempting deal, play along to save its owner, and the slime sensed a dark energy confirming its owner was in danger. So the butler feigned walking away, forcing the slime's hand, and a deal was struck with a sinister promise, as he lifted a cloche, revealing a swirling vortex of dark magic, from which a shadowy tendril shot out, capturing the slime instantly, and with the creature secured, he prepared to convert it, but the slime shook its head, refusing to become a minion. So the butler promised to return it once the job was done, and it gave a thumbs up, accepting the temporary pact, just as a system window appeared, beginning the conversion process. And the doppel slime was engulfed in a blinding magical light, as the conversion completed, but at a cost that shocked the butler, though he quickly hid his surprise from the maid Riley, worrying the high price was due to the slime's rarity. Just then his master and Cerberus returned from training, and the master reported Cerberus had saved him from a harpy, excitedly telling the butler he had gotten stronger, for the harpy's screech no longer terrified him, so the butler praised them both for their growth. And the master thanked him, unaware the butler secretly used points to boost his stats, as Cerberus announced it had a gift for the master, and the butler summoned the new minion from his shadow, while the master watched, eager to see the new creature, a purple slime that fled through the empty streets, where it was quickly surrounded by small star-marked cats, and one of the creatures lunged forward. So the slime absorbed its attacker, taking on its form, its body continuing to twist and morph until it solidified into a golden beetle, which took flight above the butler and maid. As the star-marked cat roared, its eyes glowing, and the spectators were impressed by the experienced display, while the beetle hid, watching the cat approach, using its flashy colors to draw its target in and the terrain to create an unpredictable chase, until the beetle suddenly dissolved back into a slime, then transformed into a fish diving into a fountain, as the cat watched from the edge, completely captivated, and the fish swam in circles, a perfect lure, so the cat's astral form dived in after it. While back in its body, it pawed at the water's surface, and the fish taunted it with a powerful splash. This chase described as a nerve-wracking work of art, as underwater the fish smirked at its pursuer and it jetted through the water with a burst of speed, but the cat kept pace, crackling with energy, until the fish leaped high out of the fountain, erupting into a massive glowing green bird, and the butler noted its power was still strong, even miniaturized. Across the park, a tiny slime sat in a crater, as he calmly presented a silver tray. And the slime reformed, complimenting his impressive skill, while from inside a stitched cat watched, noting the slime's strength, and it complained to its mom that the guards were too weak, making the pale woman despair that her hidden sanctuary had been found. So the cat asked if she planned to kill it again, but she turned away, her red eyes filled with sorrow, and the creature screamed, accusing her of betrayal. Then it suddenly apologized, its anger gone, so the woman decided she must awaken him, and the cat Wanyang agreed there was no other way. So resigned, she gave her consent. And a small cat-like creature darted into the night, leaping toward a giant golden beetle on a lamppost, as the two creatures prepared for a confrontation, and the butler watched the desperate battle, sensing its loyalty. So the maid asked how he knew the slime's master was threatened, and he explained he sensed conflicting auras and deduced the truth, though he laughed it off as a lucky guess, while internally he calculated the power needed for his skills. And on the tray the slime was completely exhausted. As the butler was amazed, the slime begging him to save its master, just as a glowing cat creature lunged for the weakened slime. A burst of energy slammed into the man's face, sending him flying backward down the path, where he landed catching himself on the cobblestone, as a cat-like creature addressed him as Kim Butler, approaching and acknowledging his difficult service. And though Kim Butler remained humble, the creature had a reward, offering him a promotion to exclusive butler. So his rank officially changed in the system. As the authority of Kalinus flowed into him, and a blue light enveloped Kim Butler, his clothes shifting, his formal attire morphing into a modern suit, while dark energy swirled as the transformation continued, and a silver pin materialized on his lapel, completing the promotion, so he stood taller, a new presence, his entire appearance sharper, more refined, as Kalinus promised more power for his loyalty, and Kim Butler vowed to serve with even greater diligence, sealing a new pact between them. As the scene cuts to a desolate graveyard at night, where inside a tomb a torchlit corridor leads to a cell, the passage winding deeper into the earth, and Kalinus, now in a decaying form, called out, as a woman with white hair confronted a pair of red eyes behind bars, recognizing the name of the prisoner. But the pale woman refused to listen, instead pleading with a demonic cat in the alley, and this creature bestowed a new name, Oath Sword, as a knight in dark armor stepped forward. Standing beside her new imposing champion, her eyes burning with a dark purpose, and a memory surfaced of a captured soul and the knight who had failed to protect them. So now they were bound by a new pact, as the cat demanded he atone for his sins, and the knight admitted his fatal mistake, his oath the price. So he kneeled ready to serve his new master, who gave him a target, the intruders, his first command being to eliminate them. Elsewhere the butler prepared for duty, having unlocked a new rank, exclusive butler. His power now linked to his master's state, and his master's alert state boosted his combat stats. This power surge refining his appearance, which left his allies stunned by the transformation, so he explained it was a promotion from Lord Kalinus, and the goblin maid and her companions celebrated as he promised to reward them for their hard work. When a doppel slime appeared with intel, identifying its master Banshee and her enemies, the slime confirming the bizarre situation, that its master was once human but now a ghost. So he deduced a chaos entity had possessed the cat. And with the information he needed, he thanked the slime, as the heavy doors to the mansion creaked open, and he and the maid stepped into the opulent hall, where he laid out the plan, deal with chaos quietly. But if their master was identified, no one would get out alive, when a voice from the shadows commanded them to stop. As an armored knight, Grundar threatened immediate execution, but the butler ignored the threat, asking to see the master, and the maid suddenly pointed to the balcony above, where the ghost master watched, suspecting betrayal. And the slime trembled with rage at the butler's words, while a smirk played on the butler's lips, as he calmly stepped past the knight's line, and Grundar's helmet glowed with killing intent. But the butler now held the knight's own sword, having disarmed the B-grade guard in an instant. But Grundar summoned a massive greatsword, ordering their elimination as the knight crashed down from above, and the floor exploded, but the butler had already moved, evading and preparing a counter with the stolen blade, while shouting orders to his team. As the two warriors clashed in a blur of motion, and a system notice confirmed his new power, while the armored guardian readied its blade, but our boy vaulted clean over the knight's lunge, recognizing the legendary weapon it wielded. So he activated a skill questioning the knight's presence, this ability locking onto the knight's gauntlet, as threads of light bound its weapon hand, but the guardian simply switched its grip, so he drove his own blade into its helmet, though the strike felt empty, hitting nothing. And he realized the knight was an intangible spirit, as their blades clashed across the grand hall. And the spirit mocked his tricks, but he just smirked, pulling out a scroll to make the ghost solid. And he dodged another sweeping attack, so this time his strike landed with a solid thud, making him wonder why a divine knight was a mere guard. From the rafters a creature watched the fight, realizing this butler was far stronger than expected. So the creature activated a skill to plant a seed of doubt, forcing the knight to remember a past failure, as a memory surfaced of a prayer to a stone god, where a trial by combat was held to find the truth, and both sides swore to accept the divine decision. As the champions' two oath swords prepared for the duel, and a man named Elian offered comfort, while she trusted God would prove his innocence. But a memory surfaced, a desperate plea, then a horrified scream with his name, for Elian was executed anyway, and a masked man taunted an armored knight. As the knight admitted his lack of faith caused this, and the villain laughed, blaming him for the verdict, while the knight recalled his own divine punishment. This memory drenched in regret as a dark voice questioned his broken oath, for he only brought her more despair. And Kim Butler learned a parasite controlled the knight, its power feeding on his immense guilt as corrupted energy erupted from the knight, who is now Oath Sword Grundar, an A-grade enemy, and Kim Butler knew they couldn't win this fight. So he ordered an immediate retreat. But the doors were magically sealed shut, and the possessed cat revealed they were trapped as Grundar swung his massive blade, and Kim Butler barely parried the attack, but the impact threw him across the hall where he crashed hard against the floor, this blow leaving him wounded and gasping just as an armored knight crashed into the grand hall and the goblin maid screamed for the butler, while the small creature's eyes flashed with power, and the head butler intercepted a deadly spear, his parry shattering the doors behind him. As the creature glowed, channeling its energy, and a second butler felt a surge of power, meeting the knight's blade head-on, as multiple copies of the butler swarmed the knight. But the head butler took a heavy blow, knowing the damage got through as the knight's sword pulsed with dark energy, and he smashed the hooded woman aside, so the goblin maid let out a battle cry, landing a fiery punch on the knight's armor, and the butler was stunned by their resolve to fight, as the knight unleashed a massive circular slash. And the small creatures were warned to stay back, watching knowing they were too weak to help. Elsewhere, the true master explained the situation, revealing the intruders came to kidnap him. While back in the hall, the knight gathered immense power, and the hooded woman was terrified, but the maid stood firm, as the butler knew he must block this area attack, so the knight lunged forward in a crimson blur, and the butler raised his sword ready for battle, as the armored knight swung down with immense force. And our boy braced, cracking the very floor beneath him, while the knight leaped high for a crushing overhead strike, and a massive shockwave exploded from the impact, as smoke and dust clouded the entire hall, but the butler's attack seemed to have failed, for he was hit with a stun effect, completely paralyzed. So the knight raised his sword for the final blow, when suddenly the goblin maid Riley leaped in front of him, and they both collapsed on the ruined floor, as the purple cat praised its knight Grundar. But the knight's armor melted into a puddle, revealing the real Grundar, who looked around confused, as a voice called out to him from across the room, and the butler stood again, his sword glowing with a new power as auto mode activated, locking onto its target, and he unleashed the attack with a single word, while the purple cat watched in disbelief, and two small strange creatures appeared nearby, just as a massive blue explosion ripped through the hall, and the butler gasped, drained from the powerful skill. While the pale woman and the cat looked down from the balcony, the cat realizing he was hiding a trump card, and as the smoke cleared, the butler was the only one left standing, as the floor erupted in a cloud of smoke and debris, and from the smoke a question hung in the air: was he finished? The butler caught his breath, shocked the attack had worked, but a heavy boot stepped out from the dust, as the knight rose again, wreathed in dark energy, and his mistress begged him to stop, but the cat urged him on. So he ignored her pleas, dragging himself forward, as he squared up against the butler one last time, and the demonic cat watched, surprised by his resilience. So the butler saw his opening and lunged, his blade finding its mark, sinking deep into the armor, and the knight's gaze drifted upward to his mistress, as he begged her not to forgive his sins, but she turned away as the cat dismissed his final words. So the butler demanded to know what drove this dying man. And his familiar identified a self-erosion curse at play. So to break it, they needed information about that woman, and he offered the knight a choice: talk or let her fall. But the knight's resolve hardened, he would protect her, as the cat scoffed its efforts to corrupt Grundar wasted, and it abandoned the scene to find a new target. So the butler knew he just needed to buy a little time, and he activated an ability intending to capture the knight. But the mistress ordered Shema to attack while the butler was weak, though she faltered, admitting she couldn't go through with it. "You want me gone, right?" Wanyan accused its mother, who began to walk away coldly, only for a small pink mouse to block the stairs, standing its ground and declaring that Wanyan could not pass. But the creature ignored it, consumed by a need for revenge against the butler. "We came for her, not you," the mouse clarified as purple energy swirled into a dangerous weapon above Wanyan's head, manifesting as twin blades, while the cat-like creature scoffed, a rat with no fear of a cat. Just before the mouse revealed its startling skill of gigantification, Wanyan's eye widened in utter shock, watching the tiny creature suddenly become a giant, looming over it with a mocking tone: "I can't hear you from up here," which sent Wanyan turning back to its mother in terror, screaming, "Are you going to let me die again?" It shrieked about her fatal mistake from the past, how she believed their lies, and because of it everyone died, causing the woman to clutch her head in torment, begging for it to stop. But the creature just kept screaming, "Listen to me," until overwhelmed by a grief so profound her very eyes began to bleed, a sight that left even the giant mouse watching completely stunned, just as a dark and immense power finally erupted from the woman,